All right. I will call our public hearing meeting to order on the amendment to the Kaysville City Annexation Policy Plan. And I don't have anybody specifically signed up to talk about this yet. If there's anybody here who would like to speak to the annexation policy plan that we will be discussing, now is the time. And for those who are interested, information is available online at Kaysville, our Kaysville City website. So, all right. I don't think I have anybody. Was not made aware of anyone who specifically wanted to speak to this, so we'll wait for a couple more minutes.
Whoa.
Oh. Is that Dan Jessup? Shane, would you like to, we're in our public hearing about...
Hey, do we got any batteries?
Shane, would you like to talk about the annexation plan? Thanks.
The public hearing is a requirement to modify the annexation plan. The key change was a clarification to our plan that those we annex will be served by Kaysville City Utilities. That was something we wanted to make clear and have that be the expectation of those that would annex into our city. Planning Commission had addressed this item as well, and this is the next step, is having this public hearing.
All right, thank you. So for those watching at home, essentially, if something gets annexed, it is the expectation that they will be serviced by Kaysville City Power and our utilities here in Kaysville. So, all right. I don't see anybody who wishes to speak to this, so I will close the public hearing on this item. All right.
You didn't need a motion. Never mind.
Oh, shall we?
I thought
Let's
so. Okay.
have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Barber and seconded by Councilmember Lortz. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. As you were for another couple of minutes.
Do you remember how I split the screen?
Dan, go get your batteries.
Yeah.
There's a way to have it so that I can have.
Let's just say that's
You're not on
quite
mute.
I can have those two
I've had much worse.
split screen. I forgot. I know you need to Google it.
Yeah.
It's this guy dropped that. Oh, there we go. Ooh, it's teeny. How do I make it? Oh, boom! So now I can write while I'm following. How do I switch them? Let's see if I can switch them. Oh yeah, let's do that. Shall I go? Oh, it bumped me out of it.
I mean, to me, that would be absolutely essential that you two are there, and I would love to yeah, is there certain like a time that it's best to just try and walk that out? Is it the best time for you?
those two. Oh, it does. But I'm probably going to have to change that on my phone too. How do I do that? If I just open it here now and pull it.
Oh, no, it's okay.
It's just easier. Thank you so much. Unable to verify accounting.
Sure, yeah. But I think we got the right people in that one. So she's kind of.
Should I change it?
I didn't know about the.
Council member dot.
And I thought her suggestion was good as well. She's just going to just do it as well. That's true.
That's what I had.
We're trying to see. We
Yeah.
don't want to do that with five. We don't want to do that in anything, probably not five, especially when it's completely. Yeah, so I need to know about the change in the part.
It says unable. Maybe you need to refresh it or something. I don't know why. Because it said unable to log in here too when I put it in.
Every time I see this, it's because you're typing in the wrong password. I would just like double check the password. And go
But look,
in there
it's not
and make
doing
sure
it.
he hasn't logged in.
Okay, we just changed it. Now it's saying unable.
Password expired.
I don't know what I did.
Mine expired. I don't think it is mine expired.
Can I try again? Up here? Just J. Adams or J. Adams?
Good, how are you doing? You got what? Yes, I do have a surgery. Just go visit them. Just go visit them.
I will. When I went, I had to take 2 pads because I couldn't decide when I like no. Because I love having my.
Well, I was last week. I mean, when you guys were all texting, we went ATV.
Crap, now I'm not going to get it on my phone. Oh, so we're going to try it again?
I didn't know what to say. I couldn't.
Yeah, whatever. And I come back and you're like, I'm not going to jump in.
Yeah.
Just call me. I'll give you the
Perfect. Right. No, it was okay. It's funny because it's like, wow.
Councilman? What a council member? J. Adams. I'm doing the same password. I don't care if I use one trigger. It's my dog. This. It's weird. Yeah, I'm not too worried. Oh my gosh, I guess the mic picked me up saying my password. Yeah. Forget that, everyone. Forget it.
All right. We're going to get started here. All right. Okay. I'd like to call the June 18th, 2020 City Council meeting to order, and I have the opening. Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to gather here today, and we're grateful for the great city that we live in and our state and nation. We're grateful for all those who sacrifice their time to serve this city, and we're grateful for our law enforcement officers for all that they do for us. We're grateful for the citizens who also sacrifice their time to have good things for this city. Father, please help us that we'll have a spirit of peace here in this meeting today, and help us that we will have good judgment and make good decisions for the city of Kaysville. And please bless all those who are suffering at this time, both mentally and physically, that they will be healed. And these things we pray in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first thing that we're doing today is we're going to be swearing in 2 new police officers. Chief Oberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce 2 new officers to you and our community. If I could have Kendu Givens and Logan Nicholas come up. A little bit about these 2 officers as they approach. Logan has been in the police academy for about the last 4 months. We hired him as a non-sworn officer. He comes from a strong police family. And if he's half the officer that his father and his uncle are, we've got a great young officer here. So he's just barely starting our training here tonight with us. He's got his dad, his mom, his uncle, and his girlfriend back there. This is Kendu Givens. He's got about 6 years of experience, some time with prison and as an adult probation and parole agent. So we're fortunate to have him here as well. We've had him for a couple months, but we haven't had him here to swear in just because of the corona and everything going on. We wanted to do an in-person swearing in, so we've put that off a little bit, but he's almost done with his training. It's been a quick study. His prior experience obviously has sped that up, but a couple of fantastic young officers for our police force, and he's here with his wife Sarah, and he's got his 2 children here. Mayor, if you'd like to swear him in.
Turn around and face your families. All right. Raise your right hand. Okay. I state your name. Do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Utah, to perform my duties as a police officer for Kaysville City faithfully, with honesty, integrity, and fidelity. Thank you. Somebody come forward and hand it back.
Yeah, if I can have Sarah come forward.
I would still poke it.
Wait, I need you to sign something for me. Oh.
And then we've got Ashley Nicholas here to pin Logan's.
He's getting one more of my boys out there, guys.
Yeah.
Take care of him.
Spoken like a true mom. Thank you.
And we'll do you a favor and not make you stay for the rest of the meeting.
But you can.
You
if
can
You
if
really
you
want
would like,
to.
but we won't make you. All right. But we do have an exciting presentation next. Central Davis Sewer District. Jill, turn it over to you. Thanks.
Since nobody's really in front of me, I am going to
Yes.
take this off so I can.
It's easier to understand you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. Jill Jones, General Manager of the Central Davis Sewer District. With me is Manjo Masson. She is our engineer over collections and subdivision review. Next. I'd like to give you an overview of the district and some background on the design and issues with increased density. Next. District boundaries include Kaysville, Farmington, and Fruit Heights. Everything in your home that drains travels to Central Davis Sewer, where it is treated before being discharged. Oh, no. I'll tell you.
Can't give us prize.
Where it is treated before being discharged to Farmington Bay area of the Great Salt Lake. Yeah. We have a design capacity of 9.5 million gallons a day. We're treating an average of 6.5 million gallons a day. We have approximately 64,000 residents with 16,000 connections, 265 miles of sewer lines, and over 6,000 manholes. In addition, we maintain 17 pump stations. Okay, now. Kaysville City is just over 50% of our population, and just over 50% of the sewer lines and just under 50% of the sewer lines are just over 50% are sewer lines, just under 50% are our manholes. And this is a map showing what that looks like on our GIS system. The green lines are the sewer lines in the street, and the white are the manholes. Okay, next. So Kaysville City turned over the collection system to Central Davis in 1988. We clean and maintain the sewer lines within the city boundaries. In 1997, a comprehensive flow modeling and collection system master plan was completed with the city's input on zoning and anticipated growth, with the assurance of 2 homes per acre west of I-15 and no more than 3 homes per acre east of I-15, and that was the current zoning at the time. Flow modeling was updated in 2003 with the same assurance that zoning was not changing dramatically. After looking at growth and planned density in the development, the district bonded to replace or increase the size of all major trunk lines, and that was done by about 2008. we continue to model periodically. Next. Okay, one more. Okay, what the modeling shows, and this is, we took an Angel Street section to show you, and what this shows was that a dry year in 2017, the model shows that we have adequate capacity. The blue line on the bottom there is what the water is, it represents the water. Next. Okay, but now during a wet weather flow, there's more water in that pipe. If you can see, it's a thicker blue line. Next one. When we model 4 homes per acre during dry year, it's surcharging in the manhole. You can see those first 2 sections on the left. That's a full pipe, and it's coming up into the manhole a little bit. Okay, next. A variable that's challenging to account for in modeling is the inflow and infiltration. Next. The flows of the plant are influenced by weather, and we know this because we normally treat 6.5 million gallons, and that's that red line right there. And in April, it was a dry April. If you recall, it was the driest April on record. So even though we treat normally 6.5 million gallons, it's a lot lower flow right there. And remember, this is during COVID, so we didn't have anybody leaving the city to go to work. We had everybody staying home. So even at that, we didn't treat as much as we normally do. Next. Okay, so in June, you know, that a couple of weeks ago, I think it tried to make up for all of April, I swear. And you can see our average, again, that red line, we are way above that. But in 2017, that was a very wet year. We didn't even drop down to the 6.5 million gallons. It was the highest flow we have seen. Our former manager, Leland Myers, called me and said, "Are you sure that report you just sent in was right? Because I've never seen it that high." And that's because it was just high. Next. So this excess water comes to us in various ways. It infiltrates through broken pipes, leaking manholes, but also from illegal discharges, like on the right. There are sump pumps, roof, and land drains. Those are our biggest problems. The sewer pipe is only supposed to have what's in your home that drains. You've got your toilets, you've got your sinks, you've got your dishwashers, you have your showers. You are not supposed to put in land drains, roof drains, your foundation drains, and make sure you've got a clean out cap on. Don't leave it open. Oh, just so you know, the pipe from your house to the street is the homeowner's responsibility. The sewer district maintains and operates that pipe in the street, but you maintain it until it gets to me. So if you've got trees in your front yard, you got to make sure your sewer line's working okay. So a large portion, and we've gone out and done studies. We look, when we've got a lot of water coming into the plant, we have gone out and we've pulled manhole lids. And we look at subdivisions. And when you pull up to a cul-de-sac and there is nobody home because they're all at work, and you've got this much water in your pipe, a third of a pipe, and it's clear, and it kind of ebbs and flows like a pump, pretty sure no one's in there doing laundry. So we know that a large portion of the excess water that we see at the plant comes from this illegal discharges. Next. So with the pipes already near or at capacity, increased in housing density exacerbates the capacity issue, causing surcharges and overflows. Next. This is the result of what can happen if your line is surcharged. It finds the least path of resistance, and it comes up through your lateral and comes out through your toilet and your tubs. So before the restrictions of, you can change that. Before the restrictions of the COVID-19, the planning department and Monjo from the district were working fairly close trying to make sure that we could come up with alternative ways to get the sewer down to us, because there's other pipes. Just for an example, up in the Hill Farms area, they could not go into 200 North, all of that, and then flow down into Angel Street because Angel Street was getting full. So they go a longer way. They go down to a pump station that we have on Galbraith Lane and then gets pumped all the way down to the plant. when we were looking at capacity, especially in Angel Street, we have a pump station that is on the west end of Galbraith Lane. We pumped that all the way up. It could gravity from Angel down, but there is not enough capacity, so it gets pumped all the way down to our large trunk line that is just south of Smith Lane. So we try to come up with ways to make it work. But in closing, we'd like to share our public service announcement on what should go into your toilet. Pee, poo, paper. And that's it. That's my presentation. Does anybody have questions?
Thank
I do.
Councilmember Tran.
So, excuse me. I do have a question. So you said that the plan was always 2 units per acre, and I don't know if I asked you this already, but the general plan allows for higher density along major roads. So as the plan, and it's been that way, I think, for a while, for years. So I was just wondering what your perception or what your idea of high density was at the time of, when the lines were put in.
Okay, so I wasn't here then.
Okay.
So,
well, not yours personally, but, the district.
So every time, whenever we design a sewer plant or the pipes, we always make sure that there's enough capacity. So that's one of the things we do. We look at it. We have a safety factor in there for a peak flow, so that if everything hits all at once, it can handle that. Mm-hmm. So we do upsize lines quite often. And so when you say there's higher density, I'm not sure what that meant, but I know that in 2007 I was here, and at the time we were told that we will always have this small town feel, and currently we're not looking at anything. Even so, we did upsize a lot of the larger trunk lines that we had throughout the whole district.
Okay.
So what, when you say it's okay for more homes
mm-hmm.
on major roadways, what does that mean?
Well, and that's kind of what I was just wondering is what and you probably, maybe you can't really speak to that because you weren't there, but I was just wondering if the general plan kind of alluded to higher density, what that meant 10, 20 years ago as this was all being planned out.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Because, it's definitely changed. The definition of high density has changed over time, but I was just wondering because I know that we're adding density and it's creating problems, I guess, right?
It's causing concern.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I was also wondering, just about rerouting. Can sewer lines be rerouted so they don't have to go up, around, and back? I mean,
well, you can only reroute a little bit because it is gravity. Gravity works. Gravity's cheap. Gravity's fabulous. So for the Hill Farms, what I was talking about, instead of coming to a street and tapping onto that line and then coming south, it went under that line. Okay. went further west and then traveled south, so then it could get pumped
to a different line that
yes.
had higher capacity.
So, and that's some of the things we've done on some of the other parcels. We've tried to split it. Okay, you can go half of your development can go one way, the other half has to go a different direction.
Oh, okay.
So we can kind of, if we can, we try.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. I'll let someone else ask questions and I'll circle back.
All right.
So a question I have, Jill, is you guys have been very upfront with the city. I know Leland was in contact all the time with the city trying to figure out what he needed to do for the future. And it sounds like you guys did a lot of work in 2008 to upsize some of your trunk lines based on the 2 units per acre. So the question I have is, when developments come in and the Planning Commission and the Council approves, say, more than 2 units per acre, is it possible that they may be causing a real problem for an existing house in Kaysville?
Yes. So, and we try to figure it out because we're providing a service. We're not in the business of denying homes. We're not in the business of keeping your density down. We're not in the business of zoning at all. So we're trying to, whatever you guys, as the City Council and the Planning Commission, whatever you feel like works for your city, we want to be involved in that. We have a great relationship with our cities, and we want to keep that, but we need a lead time. It's hard for us to get a 20-unit development when I don't have room for it, and now I'm scrambling, and they're yelling at me. I try, but sometimes things get put in that maybe downstream, the density or the capacity may not be there.
Okay, Councilmember Lords.
So a couple questions, Jill. One, I'm curious because Farmington has done a lot of very high-density developments recently. I mean, is that a big cause of strain for the sewer district?
So when Farmington started that process, because it was a mass area, we went in and did another a study, and we redid our master plan for that area, for the West Farmington area, and we have a separate impact fee for that also. And with that going on, we had just increased that major pipeline to hold an extra 1 million gallons. We put in a large pump station with 2 pressure lines with a way to, in the future, when it finally builds out, that it can get to us. So that did cause stress, but we got that early enough in the process that we think we have a handle on that, because it's just in one major trunk line that comes to the plant now.
So how much of the constraints are within the, I'm going to call it feeder system, the pipes through the communities, versus the plant itself?
Our plant can handle hydraulically. We can handle till build out and a little more. We do know that if growth keeps going the way it is, we will have to upsize. We also have some regulations coming down from the state of Utah on our nutrient limits for our 1 milligram per liter phosphorus. And so we've got some different processes that we are doing right now. We're just adding a chemical, but we realize that we will probably have to upsize.
And so how do we identify, because I mean, it's very easy to incrementally say, oh, well, this is only 20 more units. You know, there's still 300 acres left, so we're not impairing anything yet. You know, how do we know the impact that that development is going to have on the system, so that we make sure that they're assessed for if we need to do some extra lines, or down the road it's going to cause a problem that they don't get in before and then cause everybody down the stream in development to have no opportunity, because now it becomes a real issue.
So that's where our modeling comes into place.
Okay.
And so there are, depending on where you are, you can put in maybe a little larger development if you're closer to the plant, if you're on one of these larger trunk lines that we upsized. If you are on a street that maybe didn't look like it was going to develop that much back in 2008, maybe then we might have to be digging up roads that already has existing infrastructure in. And that's kind of the concern, is that you got water, irrigation. You've already got a sewer line in there. You've got all the laterals running to it. You've got communications in there. So it just makes it more complicated and a little bit more expensive to do that. But that's how we do it. If you come to us, we do a model and say, and modeling is only as good as the information you put in. So
I'm assuming you're aware that we're going through a general plan review this year.
No.
Okay.
But I do now, because I got told that. And so now I'm going to be a lot more involved.
Yeah, we probably need to make sure that we have city staff engaged so that as they make any recommendations about the general plan that gets brought to the city council, we are aware, because my concern after visited down there with you at the plant is that if we have to upgrade the plant, that is not a cheap thing.
No.
Upgrading some lines and doing some mitigation in a neighborhood, while expensive for that development, is not expensive overall to the city. But if we have to do the plant, then every city and every resident is going to feel the impact of that when their sewer fees go up, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
I think you asked some really good questions.
I had one final question. We
Yes.
had last year, we had a development right next to Smith's, right off of 200 North. And I remember you saying there was some sort of rerouting that occurred just for that process.
I can comment on that. That's pretty minor, and we routed it to Flint.
Okay. And because I remember thinking that was, it kind of went against gravity because it had to go all the way up to Flint for that. Was there?
Well, no, it actually
Went down.
Come to the microphone.
Oh, come on up.
It actually went south first, and then it went to
south and
the
then-
east. So gravity did work that way. So
That was my question.
it was able to work that way, and we were able to come up with a solution for that.
I remember working with you guys on that and being really impressed at the engineering that took. Yeah. Thank you. Very much thank you. But also just the cost that added to that. Where's that I'm sure it was more costly than just going the way that it was planned.
So the development is actually in charge of burning that cost because they're the ones that want to sewer that property. So they looked at it and it was feasible to them. So usually if it costs too much, they kind of back off and, ask for another alternative, but that wasn't the case for that.
That's great. That's exactly what I wanted to clarify for everybody. So thank you, and thank you for your work on that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Councilmember Tran.
Okay, thanks. So I was just wondering, so when you say that the development bore the cost of putting in or upgrading the sewer lines or rerouting, is that something that should be considered on a case-by-case basis whenever we're looking at a higher density situation? Or is it safe to assume, well, we don't have a lot of density here, so it's probably okay in this area? You know what I mean?
So
kind of just as we're looking at some areas in West Kaysville especially, where, developers are creating these great projects and presenting them to us, it's just hard, I guess, for me to know, is this going to work? And of course, I know that they have to go through and they have to communicate all of that, but it would be nice to just kind of sort of know, okay, yes, for sure something like this will probably work, but this is way too dense. Is there any way to give us that kind of data?
Sure.
Yes?
Yep.
Yes, okay.
Yep, I definitely believe that I can give you a map
Okay.
and show you where some of our lines are getting at capacity or at capacity where we may have some more room.
Okay. Or the lines could be upgraded in certain areas. That would be great. Is that something that I should just reach out individually for, or something you can give to the city, or?
Oh, yeah, I'll get it to you.
Okay.
I'd suggest we try to get that to the planning commission too.
Yeah,
so
yeah, well,
they're-
and that's another thing I was going to say. I think it would be great if you could talk to them. I don't know if that's something I can suggest, but it would be great.
Would it be assumed, though, I mean, at this point, if there's somebody's asking for more than 2 units per acre, then before we start making approvals, they should go visit you, and you should tell what you're capable of taking. Because I know, like, right now, there's one that's proposed, and it would have to go into Angel Street. To upsize Angel Street is not just a developer running a few lines. It's somebody taking a line all the way down Angel Street.
To the roundabout by
To the roundabout.
by the school.
By the school.
Correct.
So that's, I mean, we have new road down there. We have all kinds of stuff that you would have to.
I have a pressure line in there, too.
Yeah, you have a pressure. You have 2 lines already.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yes, we can get you that.
Okay, that would be really helpful.
But-
And you talked
but-
about lead time. I was just wondering, you said, we'd like some lead time to kind of prepare. What does
So-
lead time
Like a
look
decade, or?
Is that years?
Yes, like a decade.
That's what I thought.
That
10 years would be
Can we
good.
do that?
Right.
So just the logistics of it's got to be designed. We've got to go out for bid.
Okay.
We got to get the bids back, and then we got to work on that construction schedule. And then you've got to work through shutting a road down, as you all well know, because you've done this. You
Yes.
shut the road down, you make sure everybody still has service, but then you go a little bit more, and then you have a problem, then it rains or not. So it takes a while. It's not something that is going to happen next week. So it does. And Mike, to your point with the developers, we do have a lot of developers that come to see us first and say, we want to do this, can we?
Okay.
And then I think sometimes they decide that maybe they don't want to talk to us first, and they want to see if they can.
Ask for forgiveness, right?
Yep.
Okay, got it.
So, but we do have a lot that come in and ask what we could handle.
Which I think maybe would be a fair question for us to ask. Have you talked to, I mean, that should be like the first question, have you talked to the sewer? Because if you're planning on doing anything that's over 2 units per acre, it's not in their plan. It's basically what you're saying. I mean, because, the sad thing is you aren't to capacity necessarily, but if we fill you up to capacity and there's still people that haven't developed their land, now they're.
And my board doesn't like that idea. My board likes the whole spread it out with everybody also. So.
And that, yeah. So explain what you mean by spread it out to everybody, because that's what I would be curious to hear what you feel.
My board does not want to give all the capacity to one development and have a large portion of their citizens that they're representing on a sewer board not be able to sewer because of that one development.
Meaning that the person who just happens to develop a high-density area now has made it so that all the other people who've held onto their land can't develop their land which I think is a really fair, and what I love about our going into the general plan next year is to actually map this out, to say, like, this is what we want to see in the next 20, 30 years in Kaysville, and then talk to you and say, can we make that possible, versus let's just take this case by case, right?
And just so also, I need to step in with the planning department, Lyle and Dan, they almost always tell them, have you talked to the sewer district?
Yeah.
Has the sewer district signed off on this? You got to make sure you've talked to them. And they have been really good, and we have worked with them really well before COVID. Then it makes it a little more.
And you will again.
Yes. Oh, yes. And we will. And we do. But they are very good about, have you talked to the sewer district?
Okay. Councilmember Lawrence, please.
So, Jill, what else can we do as a city to help collaborate better with the sewer district?
So a couple of things I would love if everybody took their sump pumps out. So one of the things that, another meeting that we had a few years, well, a long time ago, because there are few land drains throughout the district, there is no place to put this water. And when you got clay and you got standing water, what are you going to do? So a lot of people put it into the sewer. If there's a way to get some of that out, that adds capacity to our sewer lines. As you saw, our plant, the flow at our plant goes up tremendously for a lot of that. So that is one way.
So when you say take them out, you really mean redirect them so they're not going into the sewer? Have them push the water somewhere else, onto their grass, into their yard?
Yeah, where would they go? That would be my question. I mean, honestly, I think you're right, but where would they go? Because, I do know that oftentimes when there's big rains, I will see hoses, I won't say where, going out to the curb, right? Because they don't want their backyards to be full of water or whatever, so that's going into the sewer is what you're saying.
No. If it's going out of the yard, it's going into your storm drain.
Storm drain's fine.
Yeah.
Correct.
For her.
Yes and no.
Yeah, for me it's great.
I know. I'm just saying, like, who are there people that are sump pumping it directly into the sewer lines?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
More so, those are the homes that are probably about 15 years older or so, because we were pretty good. The city was pretty good about making sure there were land drains in all the new developments.
Yeah, this is the older places where they couldn't, and it was not feasible for the city to go in and rip up the street and put in a land drain.
Got it.
There again, that's a gravity system, so,
Councilmember Tran.
So I was just going to ask you to a follow-up in what you said. You said that usually Lyle and Dan, give direction and say, go talk to the sewer district. And I know that they do that because I served in planning. But my question is then, if the development comes forward, is it kind of safe to assume that if we ask those questions, have you talked to the sewer district, they probably have? Or is there any way to get verification from you that, yes, this is okay? Is there any...
I think we're working through that.
Okay.
We're trying to come up, I think Dan has, right? So Dan has a checklist, and he sends it out whenever there's a development meeting that they all attend or do the Zoom. So we're getting better with that. Yep, check mark that. Yep, check mark that. Yep, check mark that. Okay. So we've not done it quite so much in the past, but we're getting better at it.
So there's maybe something that we could obtain from you that indicates that, yes, this developer has communicated with you? Okay, that would be helpful.
I think that would be the greatest thing, Shane, if we could just say that if anybody's going to come with a higher density than the standards they said, 2 per acre on the west, 3 per acre on the east, that they have a certification that they've got to the sewer district's involvement.
But we normally see a preliminary plat or a preliminary design.
There is that spot on there.
Yeah, we see that and then go, this isn't going to work for us because you're 20 feet in the ground, or, something, because we look to make sure that they're meeting our standards. We can actually, it flows to where they think it's going to flow, all sorts of things. If we can, we try to give them ideas on, let's make this work a little better.
Right.
So.
Okay, that would be really helpful. My last question, I'll stop asking. So I know that West Kaysville was kind of designed for 2 units per acre. How about East Kaysville? What was
3?
3 would be kind of be the max in general, or?
That was just what, back in the day, that's what they planned on, because a lot of, East Kaysville, Old Town Kaysville is already developed. There's a lot of backlots now that are coming into play, and, some other places, but
Okay.
Redevelopment that they want to take, used to have 1 or 2 and now put 16 units into it or something.
Yeah, so we want to be aware of those projects and make sure they're going to work as well.
Definitely want to be aware of those.
Thank you so much.
All right.
You're awesome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate it.
I'm
Thank you.
going to take a second, might be on my place since I've been touching everything. That's what we do.
All right.
The one thing
Good idea.
about being at the wastewater, we never had to be told to wash our hands,
Yeah.
like all the rest of you.
Very
This is
good.
standard
Thank you so much.
practice for you guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Put up there.
Okay.
Gotcha, good idea.
All right. We are now going to turn the time over to Nick Mills to give us Legal Services Department report and annual Open Meeting Act training.
Thank you, Mayor Witt, members of the City Council. It's good to be with you tonight. I wanted to, we try to give an annual report to the City Council about what each department's been doing for the last year and kind of update on where we're at and where we see the department heading. Our department is the smallest department. It's myself and Ms. Devereaux, and then we have a part-time DV prosecutor, domestic violence prosecutor. This last year, we had a fellow from BYU, Katie Ellis, who got a full-time assistant city attorney job in Layton, and so she left. The fellowship that she had, we believe that was valued at about $36,000 in legal services just in her salary. I think she was underpaid because she was on this public interest fellowship, but she rendered that service, which was free to the city. The BYU ended up paying that as part of their law school program. While Katie was here, we wrote a grant to get a part-time DV prosecutor, and the grant was awarded to the city, and Samantha Smith, who has prosecuted for several municipalities, was selected and took that position. She's worked out really great. We pay a small percentage to match the grant as part of the grant guidelines, but the bulk of that is paid by the federal government so that she can help prosecute domestic violence crimes here in Kaysville. It's been a really good program. The police department wrote a grant for a domestic violence detective, and both the police department grant and the city's or the legal department's grant both got funded, and we're seeing some great improvement in the way that we're prosecuting domestic violence. That's not to say that I think Kaysville has a pandemic or a serious problem with domestic violence, but we're seeing that those cases are certainly getting a lot more attention, and those cases should get more attention. I found this interesting. This is, as we go through the budget tonight, the city legal department operates on less than $275,000, which includes our salary and benefits for the employees. So it's a small department. We feel like we're maybe the Mighty Mouse of the city. We feel like we do good work, but we're not very big. One of the things that we do is we prosecute all the misdemeanor crimes that are committed in Kaysville, with the exception of Class A misdemeanors, which are prosecuted by the county. So we prosecute cases from the Davis County Sheriff's Office. The Utah Highway Patrol sends us a lot of cases for traffic enforcement and DUI enforcement on I-15. And then obviously we love the Kaysville City Police Department and have a great working relationship with them. And frankly and candidly, I'm constantly impressed by the investigations they do and the quality of work that the Kaysville City residents get from their police department. We prosecute about 58 cases per week, just a little bit north of that. That doesn't mean that we are in court trying all those cases and dealing with all those people. As you probably know, when you get a traffic ticket, you can call up and pay that ticket, the speeding ticket or whatever. But the court processes 58 cases every week, roughly, for Kaysville City. Every Monday morning, myself and Samantha are in court, and we prosecute in court about 35 cases. About half of those are new cases, and then half of those are probation violations. And we do try cases fairly regularly. In 2019, we had conducted 22 trials. We had 21 bench trials, which means that the judge decides the case, and we had 1 jury trial. Most of those are traffic tickets. I believe that having trials, even on speeding ticket, helps with public safety. It allows the police officers to come into court when they're young in their career, when they're on cases that are not quite so serious, and they're able to get used to testifying. They get used to understanding what they need to put in their reports, and I feel like it's a really good way to help young police officers and all police officers stay in the habit of recognizing what the end goal of their investigation is. We prevailed on 20 of the 22 trials. We had a traffic trial that we had some witnesses that didn't show up that we tried to win without a witness, and then a jury trial where the jury had some concerns with our evidence. But other than that, we were very successful in our trials. We also, as a department, we handle a lot of grammar requests. We don't handle the police record requests, but we handle all other city record requests. We usually process more than 150 grammar requests every year, which results in thousands of documents that have to be reviewed. Ms. Devereaux conducts a Herculean effort to get all that done and out the door, and to get all the records from all the various departments. Some of those are very simple, but some of those have been in the past several thousand pages. We had, in 2019, we started the year with 4 civil cases. We picked up 2. We were sued twice. We resolved 4 of the 6. We had a land use case that we resolved on a project we were doing on Angel Street. We resolved a case involving Open and Public Meetings Act violation. We resolved that at summary judgment, which is a very early point in the litigation, and we were very successful in that case. We resolved a case, another land use case, and that case ended up being dismissed. And then we had a referendum lawsuit that became moot after the council took some action, and it was dismissed. We have 2 ongoing cases, civil cases. We have an employment case that is set for trial. Well, it was set for trial. It's been continued with the pandemic. We feel like we're in a good position. We just had some mediation on that, and mediation will be ongoing, but we feel like we're in a good position on that case. And then we have an annexation case that we believe will conclude later this summer, if not sooner, and we feel like we'll prevail on that case as well. I won't talk about details on civil cases, particularly ongoing civil cases, but I'm happy to chat with you in a closed session or one-on-one about those cases. And if you have any questions, I'm always happy to address those. One of our focuses for this year is to help the various departments rewrite some of their code. We've talked about this at city council meetings before, but we feel like there are some areas that can be improved. We recently went through and removed a lot of the fire department code, which we felt like was just unnecessary for the department to run, and it wasn't needed from a legal standpoint. But we help various departments write ordinances and resolutions and staff reports so that we can affect the proper function of the city. I talked about some notable events. Probably the biggest event we had, we've talked about, was getting our Katie Ellis, who was our public interest fellow from BYU. she was a phenomenal resource, and I feel like really helped the legal department move forward. And writing and getting this grant awarded has also helped. It's a lot of, candidly, it's a lot of work for for two people, and the help is greatly needed and appreciated. I don't know that these are immediate needs, but I want to make you aware that of the future needs of the department. I don't see the department growing to be a huge department ever. I think Kaysville City could easily operate on 2 full-time attorneys. Ms. Devereaux has taken on a lot of human resources responsibilities. She's been working with Mr. Story, Ms. Moss, and they've been a great help as we've rearranged some things. So I think 2 attorneys and perhaps a part-time paralegal would be future needs that the city would have. I don't know that that'll be this budget, obviously not this budget cycle or even the next, but I see that on the horizon. And then perhaps sooner, we're looking at updating personnel policy and the option of outsourcing that. The police department, the fire department outsource their personnel policy to just kind of constantly updating throughout the country with updates, and it's hard to stay on top of that. So those are some needs that I see going forward. I'm happy to answer any questions about the department if you have any, and if not, I can begin what you've all been waiting for, the Open and Public Meetings Act training.
What's
Any
the, just real quick,
Councilmember Adams.
when you say the closest need that you're looking at is outsourcing personnel policy, I guess maybe I don't understand fully what that means.
So I don't know that this is something that the legal department would be asking for in the next year or so either. There's a company called Lexipol that many police departments use that the police department will merely contract with them. They write the policies, and then they're constantly updating the policies. Lexipol's beginning to branch out into local government policy work, and that's really helpful for small departments in smaller cities because the company is contractually obligated to keep an eye on what's going on with employment law, with personnel issues, and they push out updates on our personnel policies. For example, there's a lot of changes with the COVID-19 pandemic and how personnel policies should relate to that. It's almost a full-time job to keep up to date on those kind of policies, and I think it'd be a much more efficient way to handle that is to outsource that to a company like Lexipol, who would send us an email saying, hey, update this policy, here's some model language you can use, and then you just adopt that.
Okay, that makes sense. It's not just specifically for your department, it's for the entire city personnel policies.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. All right. Now the fun part.
Yeah, very good. So the next topic that I'm presenting on this evening is our Open and Public Meetings Act section of the code. This is actually statutorily required annually, so you get to look forward to seeing me up here talk about this every year. The code is interesting in a number of ways, and if you could go to the next slide. One of the interesting things about this section of the code is that it starts with a declaration of policy. Most of the code does not have a policy declaration. For example, if you looked up assault or speeding, there isn't a reason why. The legislature hasn't articulated a reason why they're against assault. It's just somewhat obvious. But here the legislature has articulated why they think that the Open and Public Meetings Act is important. And if you read this, as I'm sure you have, as you prepared for the meeting, if you read this, this really gives you the best guideline for complying with the rest of the act. What it basically says is that when the city council makes legislative decisions, when the city council makes decisions, they need to do that in an open and public meeting. There's a lot of ways that city council could operate in theory, and some of those would be perhaps more efficient than how we operate now. But the state legislature and legislatures across the country believe, and I do too, that that the best way to conduct the public's business is with the ability of the public to see what's going on. This is, if we go to the next slide, we're going to talk about a couple of points that relate to this, and then I'm happy to answer questions. This is your training. I have slides, but if you have questions, feel free to interrupt at any time. So first we'll talk about this slide, what is a meeting? We'll talk about what it means to convene a meeting. We'll talk about basically the law in a nutshell. And then I think what's perhaps most current is what do you do about email and text messages and such. So a meeting is not what we typically think of if we just talked about it in normal in our normal use of the English language. Meeting has a very specific definition in this section of the code, and it means that there has to be a convening, and we'll talk about what that means to convene in just a second, convening of a public body with a quorum present, and they have to be discussing, receiving comments from the public about, or acting upon a matter over which the public body has jurisdiction. A meeting doesn't mean a chance or social gathering. So if you see each other at the grocery store, you don't have to turn around and run away from each other. If you're at a...
But we still do.
You can if you'd like, but you're not required to. It doesn't mean if you all had met, if we were fortunate to have the 4th of July parade and you all met before and said hello and then got on the various floats. That's not what this means. That's not a meeting. Things that we would typically think about as a meeting are not always included. For example, sometimes you'll go to meetings that the League of Cities and Towns hosts. We don't have to notice those up. We don't have to have an agenda and necessarily invite the public because you're not there for the purpose of discussing matters over which you have jurisdiction to act on. You're there to get training. When you, in the past, the council's gone to Washington, D.C. for national meetings, and that's the same thing. If we could go to the next slide. Thank you. So it says that a meeting has to be convened, and convening means the calling together of a public body by a person authorized to do so. And they have to call that body together for the purpose of discussing things that they have jurisdiction over. So if the mayor is authorized to convene meetings, if the mayor called the rest of you up and you wanted to tour the sewer plant, or you wanted to go you felt like an issue in front of the county commission was important, and she called up and said, hey, let's go and support this issue that the county commissioner tore the sewer plant, that doesn't necessarily have to be noticed up. Many cities would notice that up, and out of an abundance of caution, we probably would notice those things up. But it's not a violation of the code if you don't notice those up. Another thing is if I called you all up and said, hey, let's gather together and talk about something, I can't convene a meeting. It's not good practice, but that wouldn't also be a violation of the code. If we go to the next slide. So this is the law in a nutshell, and this is the simplest way to understand it. A meeting is open to the public unless closed. So there's very specific reasons why you can close a meeting. You have to fit within those definitions. It has to be pending litigation or discussion of a personnel issue. You can close a meeting if you're discussing the city manager's retention or hiring a new city manager. But
for example.
No power suggestion?
Yeah, that was taken personally when it wasn't meant personally.
You could see, like, if you could see me, I'm smiling behind the mask.
Are you, though?
Who would know?
Never know.
If you can't explicitly close the meeting, it needs to stay open, and the public needs to see what's going on. Now, the public doesn't necessarily have the right, although it's good practice. The public doesn't necessarily have the right to speak on every item. We've seen that with our work items. We often don't have the public speak on our work items. When they go to action, we give the public an opportunity to speak on them. But there's often not a requirement that the public be allowed to speak on an item. They just need to be able to observe the workings of the council. And that business needs to be conducted in the open. We had a great example of kind of following the technical requirements of the rule tonight. We opened a public hearing on our annexation policy. No one was interested in speaking on that. In any event, you have to have, there are certain things in the code that you have to have a public hearing on. Lyle does a great job, Mr. Gibson does a great job of, on all the land use issues of finding those. Mr. Story's great about the budget process and making sure that we hold public hearings on everything that we need to. In short, the public just, when there's a public hearing, the public just has to be given the opportunity, if they choose, to comment. If we go this last slide. So we often get asked about emails and electronic, text messages and these kind of things. So you can send an email out to the entire council, and there's nothing that prohibits this council, this body, from doing that. It's best practice to split that into a group smaller than a quorum, so that, because often, and everybody's done this, but you get into an email thread and it's fairly easy to cross the line there and begin discussing, debating things. But there's nothing that prohibits that. So often city managers will send out emails to their entire city council, and they'll respond to some of the items, and there's nothing inappropriate about that. When it is inappropriate, and this is not a concern that I have, but if you all used your tablets to debate the items while the meeting was going on, that would be inappropriate and is prohibited. And that's been a problem in some cities. Some cities, city council member will text the other council members what they're going to vote, and those kind of things, which is prohibited. I would avoid sending electronic messages to the extent that you can to the entire council, and if you'd like to discuss an item, you're perfectly fine to call another city council member or to send another city council member an email. There are certainly everybody on this council brings expertise in certain areas, and there's nothing wrong at all with calling up another city council member and saying, hey, what do you think about this, or let me give you my take on that. But that shouldn't happen as a group through email or text. That's my training. I'm happy to sit down, or I'm happy to answer questions.
Councilmember Lortz.
So, Nick, one question, and this kind of was part of the basis for previous challenges, is the difference between an administrative discussion and a legislative decision. Mm-hmm. Can you maybe give a little guidance on the difference between those?
Happy to. You as a city council, not individually, but as a body, have legislative authority. You're the only people in the city, you're the only body in the city that has legislative authority, meaning if you're going to amend the code, you're the only body that can do that. The Planning Commission can't do it, the Power Commission can't do it. A group of citizens, with very few exceptions, like a referendum, can't do that. And legislative actions have to be taken in the open. We can think about this from the national level down to the local level here. Administrative actions are actions where staff typically takes the legislative decision that this body's made and they apply it. Administrative actions generally do not require the approval of the city council. There are thousands of administrative actions that city staff take daily. approval of building permits, park, pavilion reservations, signing up for recreation programs, signing up for trash removal. All of those things are administrative actions. This body, the City Council, has set legislative decisions, and the city staff are taking those legislative decisions, and they're acting on that guidance that they've received. Is that helpful?
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
We appreciate everything that you do. I remember back in the day before we had a city attorney, and those were dark times. So we're glad to have you.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Any declarations of conflicts of interest? Nope. All right. We're going to go to our action items. New Kaysville Fiber Technical Advisory Committee on RFP bids. I'm going to turn the time over to Councilmember Lords to present this item.
So in your packets, we added, there is a formal recommendation from the Technical Advisory Committee regarding the Kaysville Fiber proposals. They took some time to add some background and some suggestions as to individual proposals and or concerns that were raised, but also made then specific recommendations about how to award the bids. Then we also made some minor updates to the bid highlights. In reviewing back after we had the recommendation for the Technical Advisory Committee to make a formal recommendation, in reviewing the scoring, it was noted that there actually was a third party, the Strata bid for the operations and maintenance was in second place, and so we felt it was more appropriate to relist that back on the highlights so that it was noted that there was a different, the RFP actually was done in two parts and specifically was allowed to be able to award the construction separate from the operations. It didn't require one bidder to have both components. And so to be fair, we re-added that to show that they did have the second highest score in the operations and maintenance component, but did not have a high score in the construction. So that was not included. We also then highlighted out the components of the construction bid to show the design elements versus the installation labor versus the materials and equipment, because there was some differences there that was part of the commentary from the committee. Then on the financial summary, just a couple of things were modified there slightly. We added some more detail under the fiber revenue bond, but we'll be discussing that next month, so I'm not going to really just go through any of those details right now. But really there was nothing materially substantive changed in this document, just some clarifications and or adding some things around the bond parameters. So I think, Mayor, let it go to public comment or questions.
Okay. We will now open the public comment, and the one person I have signed up to this is Jacob Willoughby.
Hello, Council. Jacob Willoughby. I think this is the first time I've been in front of this new council. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Last year, I am one of the officers of the Citizens for Kaysville Fiber group, and we were the ones that went around and handed out a lot of flyers and did a lot of the footwork to have the survey have as many people respond as it did. And you met Jessica, I believe, 2 weeks ago as well. And so we have been watching earnestly how this plan has been progressing, and I'm very pleased at how it has progressed. I had a lot of neighbors that previously had fiber signs saying they supported Kaysville Fiber, and I actually know that they signed the referendum. And so, I've talked to them a little bit and kind of, that didn't make any sense to me. What's going on? And the primary reason is there was not a vote on it. They felt like there should be a vote. And so I'm pleased to say that those neighbors and my pulse on how the community is doing, and I'm definitely not the only person that has a pulse on that, is people are a lot happier about it. And they're much more pleased. And I know a lot of the council members during your elections, like fiber was a big thing while that was going on. I have a hard time seeing my sign. And I know what all of you said in all of your campaigning, and it's nice to see everybody following through on what they promised. And so we're, us and the people that we represent from that citizens group, we're very excited and very pleased with the progress. And I've read all of the bids, I've read all of the city council notes, I've read the newsletters that have come out, and all of them have been very clear, very straightforward. I know it is hard for people that jump into political processes when they see an issue that they want to understand. I know it's taken me about a year to come up to speed with things like how taxes work and how bonds work and all of those other things. And so I appreciate all of the effort that's going into explaining that to everybody calmly. Obviously, the people that are supporting fiber usually aren't the ones yelling and shouting in these meetings. We do get a little vocal on Facebook sometimes, but we do appreciate all the work that's going on. I'm glad that Kaysville picked the representatives that they did. And I honestly believe that the reason why the representatives were chosen was because of your support of a vote for fiber. I definitely believe that is what the members, the general body of Kaysville was intending as they elected you. So I appreciate everything you're doing and the Technical Advisory Committee is doing. And know that there's people out there that really need this and want this and might not come here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay. And that is the close of our public hearing. All right. So questions from council at this time. Councilmember Adams.
We're tonight choosing
yes, we
the
are.
one.
Making a recommendation.
Making a recommendation to the staff. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. On.
Well, the item for us tonight is that we will be giving direction as to what to do with the RFPs and awarding those bids. Now, I need to clarify to make sure everybody understands the award of these bids is contingent upon the vote in November. So even though we will put contracts together with these vendors, they will not become effective unless it passes the vote in November. So there's no obligation to the city of Kaysville unless it passes in November.
I have a question. Will those contracts be available for review?
Well, once it's awarded, then staff will work to negotiate. There were draft contracts that were provided in the proposals, and they will become the beginning point. But there's a lot of details around this project that we'll have to discuss with the bidder to make sure that we're on the same page, we're aligned in what we're trying to accomplish and how it will work. And then once that's done, we will then make sure the contract's cleaned up and is then presented and available for everybody to see the final
just
contract.
In case people want to see it. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because like one of my biggest concerns was the change orders, and I mean, I don't know that I need to add that to the action item tonight, but is that something that will be discussed with, because the one company had said, and I spoke to the gentleman, the one company, I believe, had said that that was the cost, they wouldn't have any change orders. Mm-hmm. And I think that was probably my biggest concern, was that we would see the cost of this increase. So I don't know how I work that into the action item, or if I need to. I guess that would be a question of mine.
You're welcome to add that as a caveat. However, and I don't have a long and storied career, but I have never seen a change order come through that the city wasn't okay with. We have, in our procurement policy, we have a level of change order where you would have to see it again. You'd have to approve it if it's above a certain dollar amount. So I feel like there's protections already involved there.
Okay.
They've given us an amount that we're going to hold them to. If we change our minds and we want to extend this project in some way, we would make that determination. That would trigger a change order on their part. They can't just arbitrarily say, well, this is going to cost more, and here we're going to charge you more. That's going to be addressed in the contract. They can't do that.
Got it.
Councilmember Tran?
Shane, what is that dollar amount? Am I not on?
Yeah.
Oh, it's right there. Where?
No,
Guaranteed.
you're talking about change
Yeah,
order?
the change order dollar amount for the city,
I
for it to
think
come
it's-
back to the city
I
council.
think it's 25,000.
So anything above 25,000 would require us to
Correct.
vote on it, and, okay.
Is that right, Dean? We had a percentage in there one time, and then we changed it. I think we changed it to a flat 25.
Okay. Councilmember Blackham?
I'm with Councilmember Adams. I think, especially where the one was willing to put in a not guaranteed maximum price, because there's so many unknowns in construction. I think it's really important to include that. I mean, I really respect the tax committee's recommendation, but I think that's a very important part, because these prices are so close in cost of construction, and one of them's got it and one of them doesn't. And so I would really hope whoever makes the motion, they do include that it has to have that guaranteed maximum price.
Okay, Councilmember
Now,
Tran?
that's really not possible at this point, is it?
I mean,
To go
yeah, that
back
would,
to,
we can't, if you put a mandate that we have to have a guaranteed
that
maximum
should have
price.
been in the
there-
original RFP, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that should have been a stipulation of the RFP, but what we can say is it can be a recommendation as staff is negotiating the contract to build in protections that they give us the product and service and/or equipment that we have asked for and they bid upon without changing the price.
Which is what we do by default.
Well, and my other question was, I know when I've sat down and spoken to you about this, there were some trade-offs, right? So maybe change orders possible, but in return, we get something else.
So, as you noted in the recommendations, the TAC committee recommended that we try to do it on a per hut or per home passed basis, so that the only time we'd see a change order under that basis would be that, we've now gone to 9,600 premises instead of 9,500.
Okay.
That extra 100 would be outside the contract, because that's what they contracted to do 9,500. But on the other side, if we only pass by 9,200, then they would not get paid for 300 houses that were premises that were not passed.
Okay.
And so, there's some ways that those can be enforced through the contract without putting a guaranteed price. Because again, if you fix just the price, there's a lot of games that can be played by, we're going to use lower quality equipment or lower quality materials, or we're going to do something different to come in at that price. And so we want to be careful that we don't incent the contractor to cut corners. We want to make sure we're getting the quality that we want at the price that we're willing to pay. And I think that, as Shane indicated, we can do that in the contracting process.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Barber?
That was going to be my comment. It's that it's already built into the process, but I think it's great to put that in the recommendation. Because what the committee's done is, I was going to say this earlier, in splitting apart the RFP, construction, operation, maintenance, that was to make sure we get the best value at each point. And for that purpose, you don't have one company coming in and doing really well at one part and the other part they're not competitive on. So that was a really great part, and we can include that. For sure.
And maybe you did, just to show one of the things that we broke out, you'll see in the construction side, was the components. And one of the concerns that came up with the bidders that had the guarantee was their equipment comparison. And where they were several $1 million lower on equipment, what quality level of equipment was that versus the other bid? And is that where we'd want to save money, is in lower quality equipment?
Well, I would have assumed that the RFP had the specifications in it.
We have specifications as to what
you have
level
to
of
meet.
service it has to provide, but there's dozens of options of different manufacturers
Different
with pluses and
Right, but there's usually a minimum and a maximum, and usually you have to meet a minimum specification.
Correct.
Okay. And just one of the other things, like I'm saying, most of Kaysville east of I-15 is on poles, and one provided a cost for poles and one didn't, and that could be a huge change order, and that's what I'm saying. I don't want to get hit with that type of a change order
halfway through, and we don't have, and what are we supposed to do? Be like, oh, we changed our mind with you guys. I mean,
but that's why I say there's got to be something in there that's more, we hit more rock than we thought that we were going to have in East Kaysville. Well, that should have been your due diligence while you were doing the RFP, and that I've just been in construction a long time, and people bid projects, and then when it comes to change orders, it's full price. It's not a competitive bid at that point. It's a change order. And so I just get concerned with something this high of, and not having something there. That's all.
Awesome.
All right.
Can I make a comment just about the recommendation itself?
Yeah, please.
Or do I? Is that okay now?
Well, we're asking questions.
I know.
But I think you are the co-lead on this,
Okay.
so go ahead and make a comment.
Just phrase it as a question, if you would like. Alex?
I've never really gotten good at that. I'll keep working on it. But so the construction bid recommendation that we have on there is a fantastic recommendation because it's saying go to the most competitive offer that we had, but also the reason that we've had 4+ weeks since they came and presented is so that we could go do some research about these companies and learn about them. And when you look at the construction bid recommendation, award the bid to Corning, it's really awesome to go learn about what that company is. Learn how experienced they are in this field, and see they're also still very competitive. So I just am really excited about that, and empowering staff to work out the best contract possible.
Okay. All right. Okay. Are we ready to make a motion? Anyone? Not yet. Still more questions?
So exactly what action are you looking for tonight? That's what I guess are you looking for the action to award the actual bid to one of these companies, or have the staff start working up a contract with one of these companies for, say, construction, and maybe another one for the operations and maintenance?
So, not making the motion, but if I were making the motion now, it would be to accept the TAC recommendation, and if you want to put the qualification to try to protect the city's interest against price changes within the project, I think that's the flexibility. It says if we can't come to terms with the number 1 scoring vendor, you can go to the number 2 scoring vendor. So that makes sure that there's the opportunity that if they can't get to a reasonable agreement, you can move to the next option. And so that way it keeps it competitive through that negotiation of the contract. But staff doesn't have to come back if there's a problem to say, oh, they didn't want to do this, so now we need you to recommend something else. So this allows staff to move forward with the project because there's a lot of details that need to get worked out, that people want to have answers to questions before we go to the ballot vote.
Okay, so looking at this document you have here, it shows that one has got a higher score in the construction, and then the other one's got a higher score in the operations and maintenance, which made a higher score total for the one that was lower in construction. Now, could it be such that it could be 2 contracts awarded, or is it just
There will be
one?
2 contracts.
So you will do the operations and maintenance to one and the construction to another?
Yeah, so
or
if
to
you,
both?
if you looked at the recommendations, you actually have Corning as the recommended construction partner, and you have Connext as the recommended operations partner. So there'll be separate contracts with each of those companies. If we can't come to terms with those 2 first choice, then staff could move to the second choice in either one of those cases.
Can I make a comment on that?
Please.
And what I was trying to say before is, because we've had so long since they came and presented, we've been able to really vet them out. And the great thing is the scoring lined up with everything else we've been researching and finding. We've had residents involved, asking questions. And so we feel confident saying, go based off of the scoring, but if that doesn't work, that second option is still a very competitive, really viable option. So I think that's why that's probably the more efficient thing to do as well, is have the ability to go either way.
Councilmember Tran.
Well, so I just have one question. Adding that clarification or adding that encouragement to, limit change orders, what would that number be? Wouldn't we need to establish a number that we would want staff to target for in terms of not exceeding in terms of change orders? So, I mean, how do we control that? We just say we want you to limit it, and then staff gets to choose what they think is reasonable, or is that how that would work?
Well, yeah, and to follow up on piggyback on your question, basically, Andre, you were saying, Councilmember Lords, you were saying that that we couldn't put something in here where we say you have to match what those guys offered, in the sense that they said there will be no change orders because that wasn't in the original RFP? Or are you saying we can say that?
Well, we can't add a requirement to the bids
that
was
wasn't
not in the
originally in the
request for
RFP.
proposal. But we can give direction to staff to, get the best and final possible by trying to get the best that was available in the proposals. And then they can negotiate with the vendor as to what's the best they can achieve in protecting the city, that the project will not have overruns.
So it'd be like my recommendation to the staff that that when negotiating with Corner CCG, that they have them follow the same guidelines that were proposed by AG, that there aren't any change orders, that this is the total price and that they will absorb costs. This is my recommendation to the staff, right? That they do that. But I can't say that has to be that way. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't think that we can add a requirement that was not in the proposal.
Yeah.
But can we recommend to staff that they can require that, or that they do
try
that?
to accommodate as best they can
As part of
in
the contract.
negotiating the contract to limit the ability of the vendor to do cost changes or change orders.
Andre, you can see how we're a little bit nervous here, because we're not talking about building a building. We're talking about tearing up the entire city and putting this infrastructure in the entire city. I mean,
but
whether it be
if you look
streets or poles or whatever, I'm just saying that that's such a difference where one is saying we will not exceed this, another one's saying no, we don't have a.
Well, again, and I have to be careful here, because that guarantee was not in
the
their
RFP.
proposal.
I understand that.
It was given in verbal in their presentation, and so therefore it could be asked for in contracting, but it was not in the, and that's why their score did not change when they made that offer, because it was after proposals were made.
That's also why it was really great to have those presentations, so we could hear their expectations and their plans, and we actually went back, had further communications, and that's what staff will be able to do.
Yeah, we had several conversations to clarify their proposals, to make sure we understood them correctly. That's where the pricings were adjusted based upon those conversations, to make sure we understood exactly what they were bidding. But yes, I mean, certainly, I think, for staff to try to do their best. I mean, as you know, with any construction contract, there is a fine, I mean, it's a double-edged sword when you say have a fixed bid. Because now you are providing a negative incentive to that vendor to come in under cost. And to do that, they may do things that do not meet the expectations of the city. And so that's where I'm saying you have to be very careful. It's a fine line to try to balance that, to say we want the best value project versus I want the lowest cost project.
So I have a question. In terms of, okay, so we don't have, it's not in writing that that either company would guarantee that there will be no price adjustment. Okay, so at this point, since it's not awarded, can't we go back and ask for clarification and get best and final? I know in federal contracting, that happens to us all the time. The customer will come back and say, okay, now we want a clarification, to this point. And they ask it of everybody. And then we have an opportunity to provide additional information. We can't add a requirement. We can't say, oh, by the way, now we're also going to require this, but they're allowed to ask us questions regarding it. So, just wondering.
The challenge with trying to go back and reopen it with a best and final at this point is that everything has been made public. And so it's unfair to all of the participants to now say, we want you, and I mean, Nick can kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but as we talk through this, That's why we decided not to do a best and final.
Okay.
Was because we gave them opportunity to ask questions, to clarify what our expectations were, to put their best proposal forward and not expect a best and final to occur. That they needed to put their best foot forward now, otherwise they may not move forward. And so there is some challenge in trying to do what you're suggesting. I know they do it, but it also, like I say, most bids, they don't publish everything immediately upon proposal.
Right, absolutely.
But we did that because the citizens were very loud in saying, we
information.
want to see every step of this process. We don't want it in back doors, back rooms. We want to be able to see what's happening, what's been proposed. So we published the proposals, we published the scoring immediately. And I don't know that it'd be fair to go back and say, now we want you to go refigure it all.
Well, and the hard thing with even putting that requirement, I think, to limit the change order amount or to encourage that is that wasn't part of the that wasn't part of the RFP. That wasn't part of the requirement.
Yeah.
To say, okay, give us a maximum that you might change.
Well,
And
but
so
see,
it's
that's
kind
where,
of
that's
hard
where
after
some of
the-
it, if you negotiate through, and that's what I was saying, with the recommendation, if we negotiate it on a per home passed basis,
Mm-hmm.
then what change order can they make?
Okay. What do
You
you
know,
think, Mike?
and that's something we'll have to work with the vendors
Yeah.
to say, are they willing to take that and say, okay, we understand the risk or not?
Two real differences right here.
And people can't do change orders that you don't agree to. You
Right.
can't just say, here's more, you
They
need
can't
to
just
pay us
charge
more
you
money.
up. Yeah.
We have to agree to that, we have to sign off on it, and you're going to see anything above $25,000. So I'm a little confused of what you're trying to do.
Well, I'm a little
with
concerned
this
that if
motion.
if I'm on one street, that change order might be 10,000, I go to the next street, that change order might be 15,000, I go to the next street, that change order might be 20,000. I still haven't hit that 25,000 threshold, but yet I've got about $65,000 in change orders. That's where I get concerned, because
Somebody is still having to authorize that at every turn. They can't just give it to you. So staff would have to do that. So you wouldn't see it unless it was 25. So if you trust staff not to just let somebody do a change order on every street, we'd still have the same assurances that that's not going to happen.
But what recourse do we have, Shane? I mean, if they, if they're halfway through the project and they're saying they need to do a change order and we're like, no, we don't approve that. It's like, well,
If we don't
then,
agree, we don't pay it, and we hold them contractually to what they've said they will do, whether that's a per house connection.
okay,
and
that
then-
makes
and then
sense.
if
So
we
you
get
can
legal
still,
people in-
you can
of
still
course.
obligate, like, hey, well, you still have to do what
Sure.
you signed the contract to do, even though it's more money. That makes me feel more comfortable having you explain it that way, because I guess what I'm seeing is somebody starting a project saying, we need more money. Well, we're not going to award you more money, and they just leave the project, and it's just sitting there half done.
We won't pay them, they can sue us for not paying them, we can go to a legal proceeding and have that worked out that way, but that's what the importance of the contract is, that we are on a good legal ground to getting what they say they will do, getting that and paying them accordingly.
And one of the features, if I'm not mistaken, I'll phrase this as a question, was that if they come in under budget on construction, that money goes to us, correct?
There's the opportunity to work with them on that, to say that if we don't require them, say, for instance, to go to as many premises as we thought, then yes, you could have a savings that could inure back, or you can have some other language in the contract that could do something similar if we decide to use a different hardware vendor than was anticipated and it saves money. You could work with the vendor or with the contractor to make sure that savings comes back to the city.
Because that was really appealing to me in speaking with the folks there, was that they said, yeah, if we can save money, then it goes back to the city. And that's correct, right? Okay.
I think one thing to keep in mind is there's the total budget of the project itself. And so like you were saying, change orders that come together, they'll all be accounted for in the budget, and this project will be taken out incrementally. So we can keep a pulse on it. If they're having huge change orders each street, we need to stop and relook at the entire project. Not everything's going to be executed all at one time.
Okay. All right.
That wasn't a question.
Oh. Question mark.
Okay.
Time.
You could just change your intonation.
I'm telling you, I'm not good.
A time?
Time?
Okay, so lots of good questions here. I guess it boils down to, do you trust staff to negotiate a good contract? That's what it boils down to.
And Mayor, if I can, we can have, because there's the 60 to 90 days, I mean, we could have staff come back and report and show, okay, this is where we're at, this is the contracts, these have been approved. I'm putting Ryan on the spot here, but I think that's also the benefit of having this timeline with a long lead time. I've been really glad that we've done that we have a lot of time to do this right and come back and communicate. So if that would help.
I think that would help
to
a
do
lot.
that.
Can I say that?
Yes, you may.
I
happy
think
to
that would really
recommend
be
that,
helpful.
I should say.
And it would be helpful to be able to review the contract
absolutely.
prior to execution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Prior to making the motion, just because I don't think I'm going to make the motion because I'd screw it up, but can I ask that whoever makes the motion include somewhere in their verbiage that this is hinging upon the vote and, you know, all that stuff that you said so well, Councilman Lortz. I know it's in there, but I just thought that maybe for
Always
peace
good
of
to be
mind,
clear.
it would be nice to have that included in the motion. But I don't want to make the motion because I don't know, I'd screw it up.
All right.
All right.
Okay, who feels up to a challenge? All right,
of those
are you
two.
ready for a motion?
All right. I would like to make a motion
All right.
that we approve the Technical Advisory Committee recommendations on the RFP bids to empower staff to execute according to the recommendations contingent on a public vote.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Barber, seconded by Councilmember Lortz. Comments at this time.
Nick gave me
Councilmember
the-
Blackham.
The comment I'd like to say is I appreciate what Councilman Barber and Councilwoman Barber and Councilman Lortz have done and the work they have put into this, because I am obviously not qualified for this. And that's why any way you look at it, the TAC committee is the ones that I will follow the recommendations. But I always said, if it went to a vote and the people voted for it, and that's exactly what's going to happen, that I would support it. And supporting the TAC committee is just part of that, because that was the experts who are looking at this, because I'm definitely not the qualified person for it.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Councilman Adams.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my comments as well, is that in going out, knocking doors, that's what everybody asked for. I'm so impressed with the TAC committee, with just what everybody's done to make this exactly what everybody was asking for. I've not received negative emails. I haven't received any real phone calls from people saying, don't do this. And what I love about it, too, is that the Comcasts of the world and all of those people are going to have their chance to try and sway the voters as well. I just think it's going to be the right way, and I think that this is, if the city wants it, then I'm for it.
Okay, Councilmember Tran.
I have a question about the motion. So did your motion include all of the things we just discussed in terms of we want to be able to have them negotiate?
Nick says yes.
The contract, okay, and we want to see the contract before, and we want the feedback before?
Yeah.
That
I didn't
includes all of
include that,
right?
but
I just want to make sure that that motion
Yeah.
covered what we've discussed here. Yes.
It definitely covered everything we need to cover.
Okay.
If there's something you need to feel better about it, we can do it differently, but
If we're covered, it's.
we can bring it back to you before.
We'll make sure that we
don't
do,
need
yeah.
a
We can
motion.
give you the commitment. We will make sure it comes
Okay.
back here
Yeah.
when we
Just-
finalize it.
yeah, we'll put that on the timeline.
Great, thank you.
Okay,
My comment,
yes.
when I was so trying to make it a question before I ended halfway through. But anyway, the recommendation is really for the construction. I was saying I'm really proud. There were a lot of residents that went out and they researched Corning and found that they've been in the business for 170 years. I mean, I really go off on a tangent when I learn all about the history of them and from I think anyway, from the very beginning of communications, electronic communications, they've been there. So that, I think that is awesome. So great that they would care to come to Kaysville and, construct this network. Then you go to the operations side, and if you look into the top bidder, obviously we're going to have both, possibly, but the top bidder is with Connext, a local company that's right here in Utah. So when I look at it, I see the best of both worlds. We have a national company that's nationally recognized, 170 years of experience. We have someone local who is right around the corner, cares about us, and able to really provide the best service. And they are the most competitive price-wise. So I feel like you have a really good combination of attributes of a response to that RFP that I honestly did not see coming. I'm really surprised to see such a unique mix. And so as I talk to residents, kind of explain that, it's given a lot of peace of mind. And obviously, we'll see how the contracts negotiations work. And I'm glad that this council took that recommendation. But for me personally, I think we are in a very good position, and we're going to be really well serviced with the options that we have available to us up there. So, and I did not have to make that a question. There you go.
Councilmember Lortz.
I just want to add that I appreciate the citizens' involvement. I know that there's been criticism about how some people were included or not included in the process, but I think that, I'm very appreciative of those that engaged, the conversations, the questions, the research they did on their own to be able to come forward and really help the city in this process. And as we heard, several of the people on the citizens panel were opt-outers that had submitted an opt-out form and said they were not in support of this project, and have all turned over and said no. As Councilman Adams said, you filled all of the concerns we had and gave us a voice, you gave us an opportunity, and you're basically being very transparent about this whole process. Nothing's rushed, nothing's on last minute. Everything's been published, everything has been discussed. It's being done very in a very determined manner. And so I appreciate their help in that as we keep bouncing things across citizens and residents, and getting their feedback and doing it the right way. And so I appreciate their help on this.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a testament to public participation that we've been able to come up with it, something amazing. Yeah. And it is truly Kaysville driven, Kaysville specific, and so I'm really excited to have this be something that the citizens get to take ownership of, because it's been a huge group project. So, and appreciate the leadership on staff and as well as our community and council members. So thank you for that. All right.
One final thought,
yes,
if I can. Just on the actual ballot initiative that we'll be seeing in coming weeks as we vote through the process to submit it and refer it to the ballot, the November ballot. A huge thank you to Councilmember Lortz, who's really investigated that process. It sounds like a very easy thing to do. Oh, let's put it to the vote. Not easy. For any future councils listening, not an easy process. Highly technical legalities to work through, and all of those are very good. They're very good protections, but we have learned so much, and it has truly taken this long to get it prepared, and you'll see that in coming council meetings. But know that it is with so much care being packaged and put up to residents, and that's why it's taking so long. I had lots of people say to me, why are we even talking about this right now? And there are lots of legal reasons why, and we've learned a ton about it, and we can confidently say we're putting it on the right way. We have all of our ducks in a row. We have residents aware, and I am going to repeat what I say every single time. I am glad we are in the position that we are in now. So thank you sincerely to everyone that's been part of this.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments before we go to a vote? All right. Okay. Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
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 Motion is unanimous. Thank you. All right.
I don't think we had a second on that. Is that okay?
No, we did.
We did? Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure.
A resolution adopting the Kaysville City modified tentative budgets for fiscal year 2021 and the adoption of a city consolidated fee schedule for fiscal year 2021. Dean?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you just indicated, the action item tonight is to adopt the modified tentative budget as well as the consolidated fee schedule for fiscal year 21. We have made just one minor modification from the budget you reviewed a week or so ago, and that is after we received assessed values from the county. We've made a slight adjustment on property tax revenue, an increase of about $10,000, and then a decrease on the truth and taxation anticipated revenue from $210,000 to about $87,000. After we received the numbers, the growth, assessed value growth was about 2.5%. In years past, it's been quite a bit higher than that. So the action is to adopt the modified tentative, adopt the fee schedule, and that becomes the budget that we work with beginning July 1st. And then we have scheduled a truth and taxation hearing for August 6th at 6:30 p.m. And in the meantime, residents will receive tax notices indicating the potential tax increase. We'll have the hearing on August 6th, and then the following meeting we will adopt the final budget. So again, I can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council?
The,
Nobody is signed up to speak to this. Thank you. In the public hearing. Question, Councilmember Blackham?
Just, this has got the modifications we asked for on the tentative budget?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilmember Lortz?
So, Dean, what information we have in August related to, like, for instance, sales tax impacts from COVID, will we have through April or May's information? Or
maybe let me go back a little bit. Last time we discussed in detail, we did not have March's information. We have since received that, and really quite surprised. It was actually 10% higher than the previous year. We had some sectors that were running at 175% grocery, and we had some other sectors that were quite a bit less than that. So I think April will really be telling, and we should receive that in the next probably 10 days. And then we should receive May's numbers towards the end of July.
So we'll have all but June's information.
All but June for the fiscal year.
And so that should give us a good indication going forward with the 2021. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Questions?
Just,
Councilmember Adams.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, on the, and this was just mostly because I don't fully understand on the road, because I know that a lot of people were interested in the road utility fund. On the interfund services, the 67.5, can you just explain what that's used for so that it can be public?
Sure.
Again?
As part of our hearing last council meeting, we talked about enterprise fund transfers. So anytime there's activity between enterprise funds and governmental funds, that needs to be disclosed. And we talked through that, and I think the question in dealing with road utility fees is there is an administrative fee that the road utility fee enterprise fund pays to the general fund. And that's in the amount of $67,500, I believe. And that is for services provided in sending out utility bills, any administration operations, any legal issues, any management issues, anything administratively that we do, that cost is allocated back to that enterprise fund.
And that would include the staff managing the projects under the road fee, enterprise fund?
Probably not, because that would be under Public Works.
Okay. Well, but I'm saying that would be part of interfund transfer
Yes,
value.
yes, yes. As far as the day-to-day construction management, Public Works would handle that within their area of responsibility.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Okay, thank you. I will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Kaysville City Modified Tentative Budget for fiscal year 2021 and the adoption of the City Consolidated Fee Schedule for fiscal year 2021.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Lords, seconded by Councilmember Tran. Any comments at this time? Councilmember Lords.
So hopefully the public understands that, this has been a very uncertain time for trying to set the budget, and we've tried to be very conservative but prudent within what we're doing. And I applaud the city staff as they have gone through and looked at and revised and considered what we can do and how we do it. And I'm just very proud that Kaysville is in a position that we are having much less impact than other cities that have had to lay off staff, reduce programs, and make major cuts within their budgets. So I'm very proud of Kaysville and what they've been able to do.
Thank you, Dean, because he's always very, very conservative. So thank you for keeping us on the straight and narrow.
That was going to be my comment, too,
Yeah.
is staff. I mean, at the beginning of the year, we heard a lot of needs from staff and valid needs, very valid things. And then this global pandemic hit, economy's really uncertain. Every single department head came and said, hey, we're okay. We're just going to do with what we have. We'll have staff do more with less, and that's really commendable. So thank you to everybody.
Yeah, appreciate it. All right. Let's go to a vote. Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. A resolution of Kaysville City Council authorizing the pickup of the employee portion of the Utah Retirement System Tier 2 Public Safety and Firefighter Retirement System 2020 enhancements. Shane, do you want to speak to that, or is it?
I think Dean could do it better.
Dean?
Yeah.
Please.
He wrote the staff report, which is
Yeah.
very well done.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, this is mine. This is a budget-related item, so it's probably appropriate. A year ago, the 2019 legislature made some enhancements to the public safety retirement system. As you recall, 10 or 12 years ago, they made some overhaul changes to retirement and actually reduced the benefit for public safety employees. In the last legislative session, they enhanced that benefit for public safety employees, but with that comes an additional contribution from the city. They broke it up into two parts. They broke it up into a contribution from the city and a contribution from the employee, with the option that the city could pick up the employee's contribution. A year or more ago, probably
It's been at least
2 years ago, we knew that things were happening with the legislature and the idea of enhancing the public safety benefit. So the city went ahead and provided an additional 401k contribution for public safety employees, knowing that at some point when the legislature took action, we would look at that and act accordingly. So our recommendation is to pay the additional 2%, the employee contribution, plus pick up the employee portion, but reduce it by the additional in a proportionate amount of the 401k contribution. So reduce it by 4.27%. So there would be no net additional cost to the city. It would wash out, but we think it important to add that benefit to our public safety employees.
Thank you. All right. We don't have anybody signed up to speak to this item, so we'll go to questions from council.
So my question is, it doesn't cost the city anything, right? You said you said there's really no cost. No. There's no additional cost. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me just say, so I guess the action tonight is to adopt the resolution authorizing the city to pick up that additional amount and authorize staff to sign the authorization form for that.
Okay. Just before you run down there, Dean.
Councilmember Adams.
Yes.
Thank you.
You mentioned, and I don't expect you to know this, but it just came to my mind, you said that a few years back that they lowered it, that the state lowered it or decreased it. Do you remember how much they decreased it by? I mean, has this brought them back up to kind of where they were before?
Pretty close. They reduced the...
I see at the back, no.
No. I mean, I just...
They hurt them. They hurt them really bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, I know that we can't legislatively maybe do anything right now for that, but just right now for me, it's shocking to me that people are still... I mean, to have these two gentlemen that were sworn in today is just amazing to me. It's the last thing I would want to be doing. No offense back there. But, and so I guess I mean, is this enough? Would be my question to you. I mean, because we're doing it. I know we don't have the money necessarily.
Councilmember Adams, this is exactly why we pushed to do this a couple of years ago, is to and give Dean all the credit, just like we said in the last item. He 2010, Tier 2 started, so it was as Councilmember Blackham said, it was we were in a tough economy back then. This was the legislature really diluting the benefit to a public employee retirement benefit. So does this make up for that? Absolutely not. I don't think it does. We are trying, but to Dean's credit, he kept budgeting for every employee as if they were a Tier 1 employee. So when we said, let's do this, let's maybe make up some of the shortfall, that money was available to us because Dean continued to budget, as he does, very conservatively. So we're able to give them that benefit, which was a good recruiting tool. It continues to be to this day. It's one thing that separates Kaysville from other organizations. And then with this, we also, when we did that, we knew the legislature is probably eventually going to come in and help our Tier 2 employees. So if we hadn't done this benefit at all, we would be forced to find this money to help them do this, where because we took this action before, we've got this money, we've already been giving them this, we're kind of just reallocating. It really is a wash. It's a wash to the employee, it's a wash to the city, but this is something we're recommending you do because we need to tell the URS what we're doing, who's paying for this. And in our case, we'd like the city to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. And I guess my question then, and this will be my last, well, maybe not, it would be, obviously in the times that we're in right now, it wouldn't be fiscally responsible to do any more than what we're doing. But can we readdress this? Is this something that down the road, if we start picking up, can we look back at how much we're contributing? Because I know for me, it would be nice to give them more. And I think of any employee that deserves it, it's the people who are like literally saving our lives, and the public safety firefighter, so is this something that we can readdress, or does this make it
No, of course
finite?
we can. I think if you asked a public service, a Tier 2 public service employee, they may say, well, I'd like to get more in my check. So that we may want to address salaries. As Councilmember Blackham's mentioned before, I think if you ask our firefighters, they may say, I'd like more bodies in my station than I would for more money. So that's the conversation we'll have to have later is, what do we want the most?
I mean, they hurt them bad enough, and Chief can correct me if I'm wrong, but at 20 years, when you retired from the Utah Retirement System, public safety, you would have 50% of your wages. When they did this, the legislature a few years ago, at 20 years, you'd have 35%.
It's 25 years.
It's 25
they
years.
Added 5 years to your
5 years they added,
and
and then it was only 35%.
37.5, I think.
Something like that. So it was just ridiculous.
They removed the benefit from 2.5% per year
to
1.5% per year.
Yeah.
And, it went from a 20-year retirement to a 35-year retirement.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's...
Thank you.
All right, so
I'll make a motion.
questions and ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda item, action item to Tier 2 public safety retirement enhancements, in quotations, pickup of the employee contribution, and that we continue to look at ways that we can benefit our public safety and firefighter retirement systems or benefits.
I'll second that.
Okay. It's been moved by Councilmember Adams, seconded by Councilmember Blackham. Comments? No comments. Let's go to a vote. Councilmember Lords.
Aye.
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 Motion is unanimous. All right. Consideration of the PRUD overlay zone to allow access to new lot from private street and preliminary plat for the Bailey subdivision at 1480 Willow Drive. And I believe we have Dan to go through this.
He's ready to go. Well,
And we,
maybe not Ryan's ready to go.
As long as he found his batteries.
That was so funny.
well, hello, Dan. And at this point, we want to There we go. He's a good sport. Thank you, Dan. Can you?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and everybody in the cheap seats. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for being here.
Hey, hey.
He's awesome.
All right. Okay. All right, Dan, do you want to explain this?
Yep, let me, what we have, I can't see the screen or anything, but what I have is on 1480,
Willow Drive.
Will, I know.
They were
I'm
open.
with you, one sec.
No problem.
1480, are you there?
Yeah, we're here. We're here.
Still on the cheap seats.
1480 Willow Drive, there's a house that they're subdividing the back half of the lot. And it's an R120 lot. They have plenty of frontage area to meet the R120 zone. It is west of Smith's, on the north end of that new Green Manor subdivision. And what they're applying for or requesting is a preliminary plat approval, and they also need a PRUD. The reason for the PRUD is it's going to be frontage. The lot is going to be adjacent to a private street that is part of the Green Manor subdivision. And so therefore it's required to have a PRUD for the private street, basically. They have plenty of frontage, plenty of area, and a buildable area outside of all the easements for the utilities, everything that's east of that lot. And I believe Jim Nooner and his son-in-law is there. If they have any questions, they could probably address that better than I could.
All right.
And that's pretty much what I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thanks. We'll allow the applicant to now present. Mr. Nooner, would you like to address the council?
Sorry, it took a minute to get in from the cheap seats. So, so I guess it's fairly straightforward. So we have 1.5 acres, and we're just splitting off basically a half-acre piece at the back that does tie into the private road for the new Green Manor subdivision, and we'll tie into the utilities there as well. So I don't know, any questions? Or you want me to go into any more detail? I'm not sure what else to share. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Let's allow the public hearing.
Okay. Oh,
and then we'll public comment, and then we'll
Great.
Okay.
bring you back.
Thank you.
All right. In our public comment, we have Blake Bailey signed up. You're good. And Pam is also signed up. Would you like to say anything? Okay. All right. Okay. So I think that's everybody who's signed up for public comment. So, Councilmember Barber, you had a question.
Yes, I do.
So come on back.
And like I said previously, I remember when this other subdivision was coming in, and I actually remember the previous applicant before this one was approved, and I'm happy to see how it's all working out. I really am. I remember there was a homeowners agreement in place that was a question, and just wanted to see if this applies to the change here.
So I guess technically it does. I've been around to, there's really a question whether that's even enforced because it lapsed, but regardless, I've been around and talked to the neighbors, and everyone's I would say no one's opposed, and most are in favor of this, feel like it's a good use of the land and are okay with it.
Yeah. Because they were, it wasn't a homeowners agreement, it was
what's it? CCR.
Yeah,
just
CCR,
covenants.
thank you. Yeah. And it had technically, because I remember this again from a couple of years ago, so thank you for.
Yeah, when you read it, it's lapsed, but one of the people who was upset about the townhomes going in went and around. So it's really kind of, it's not sure, but the people are all really okay with this.
That's what my main question was, so that's wonderful, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Councilmember Lortz?
So I noticed on the drawing for the home, how it's situated on the property. They've got the driveway in front of the garages over part of the utility easement. I'm assuming that's for the pipeline.
Correct.
There, and have we gotten approval that that's okay to pour the concrete on top of that?
I think we'll have to go through the engineering piece to get that approval, so that'll be part of the final that we work with the city. But I mean, they've allowed the road and everything else, and we've had preliminary conversations and had no pushback. We don't have formal approval on anything at this point on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember
I don't know if these are questions or whatever, but I got to make sure that I know these answers before I can. Okay, so this is really something different that I've never seen, because the lot actually belongs to a subdivision that doesn't sit on a street. They're actually using a street off of a private subdivision, off private lane that they're not a part of. So if it takes a PRUD, do you have a development agreement also?
So
because what I would have to say to make me comfortable with this, I would have to say that this, what's the name of the subdivision? Green
Manor.
Green Manor. Well, Green Manor would have at least have a reciprocal easement for this lot that has to be recorded and shown, and it would have to also show that Lot 1 of this subdivision is also part of the owners association of that Green Manor.
Correct.
So
we've had negotiations and discussions with the subdivision developer of the Green Manor. We have an agreement that has been negotiated that will be signed once the council approves the zoning change, et cetera, for the lot. And you know, providing the CCRs for that have to be recorded.
You understand where I'm coming from. I mean, if they decided they didn't like these lot or whatever anymore and said, you know, without a reciprocal easement recorded or an access easement recorded, they could just deny them access through their private lane. And that's where I'm concerned, and make sure that's in place. And the other one, to make sure, obviously, if I'm one of the owners in Green Manor, I want to make sure that Lot 1 is also participating in the owners association for the maintenance of that road.
Sure, and that's all part of that agreement that's been negotiated. Right. Yes, it's a valid point. So we've been working with them for the last few months, and we're working with them on utility plans and that agreement and access and other things. So, yeah, that's all. It's in place and basically set to be signed as soon as the zoning is approved.
How do you, I'm just asking.
You could maybe add that to the motion.
How do you do that? You want to make sure that's there.
That's pretty common, I think, with development. I think a lot of times Green Manor wants to make sure that this is going to be rezoned before they start agreeing to provide easements across their property. They still would have to come back for preliminary plat, final plat approval.
This is preliminary plat.
Yeah.
So, we make that a requirement of the final plat for the Planning Commission, that they have to have had the agreement in place.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, let's do that.
That's a
But
good idea.
what Mr. Nooner is describing is very common with development, is that before a lot of adjoining properties won't agree to entitlements until the property's been rezoned. They just don't want to give up those options, and if it's futile.
Understand.
All right. Any other questions? Good. All right. I will entertain a motion at this time.
Beautiful home, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I will make a motion that we approve the PRUD overlay zone to allow access for the new lot from a private street and preliminary plat for Bailey Subdivision, 1480 Willow Drive, with also the final plat acceptance of the Planning Commission that there is an easement provided for access to Lot 1, and also Lot 1 is made a part of the Owners Association of the Green Manor subdivision.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. It's been moved by Councilmember Blackham, seconded by Councilmember Adams. Comments? All right, let's go to a vote. Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
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 Motion is unanimous. All right. Congratulations. All right. All right. Rezone of approximately 10.6 acres of property at approximately 1700 South, 550 West from RA Residential Agriculture and A5 Heavy Agriculture to zones to the R16 Single-Family Residential Zoning District. Every Homes. Dan, are you there?
Yeah, is it my turn again?
It's your turn again.
You guys sound like parents on Charlie Brown.
Wah, 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 wah. It is your turn.
What we have here is we have 10.5 acres. It is right now zone A5 and RA. I3 was wanting to rezone to a R16. That is a 6,000 foot lot. New to our ordinance, new to our zoning, we just approved it earlier this year, I believe. What they've done is presented to Planning Commission just kind of a perceptual drawing, and it showed like 56 lots, I believe, and pretty much City Council or Planning Commission was 5 days on it. They had a few questions that they was addressing. First of all, being whether it fit into the neighborhood or the surrounding area. They had a few issues with providing the 550 West Street access, who was going to provide all the infrastructure and stuff. It's not been done yet, and that became an issue. There was an issue with the general plan and how it was going to fit with the new roads being provided, the west corridor mainly, and how it was going to all play out with that. They wasn't quite sure. So, pretty much they had 2 main questions to approve for the R16 zone rezone. And then I went with that recommendation and just brought it to you guys. So I guess short and sweet, that's where we're at on it. If you have any questions, please ask. And I believe Ivory will have a representative there too to go over it with you.
All right, thank you. Is it Chase? Yes. I can't recognize you with your mask. Thank you.
Mayor, City Council, thank you for the opportunity. Like Dan mentioned, we've come to a roadblock with the Planning Commission. Just there's a lot of questions about the general plan and what this area should look like and how it should develop. And there's a lot of questions as to how this ties in with 550 West, with Angel Street, and I'm happy to discuss a little bit about our plans for that. And first of all, just to back up a little bit, this product that we're proposing is a low-maintenance product that's designed to be kind of a cottage-type feel. And it's designed, this is actually a project in Park City. They're highly decorated with masonry. They look good. They have killer landscaping, and they're very nice floor plans. and we feel there's a need for this for those that can't maintain a half-acre lot or don't want a half-acre lot but still want a nice home, a nice comfortable place to live. We feel this product would fit nicely and complement the area. However, I know the Planning Commission had concerns about, if it fits with the surrounding area. Our argument to that is that, this area is going to be heavily impacted by the Angel Street extension and West Davis corridor, which will basically become, West Side Freeway adjacent to this area. And we feel that, some higher density up against West Davis corridor is appropriate for this area, while still complementing and benefiting the neighborhood to the north. We know there's a lot of beautiful homes in the Sunset Equestrian Center, and a lot of neighbors protested and voiced their concerns in the Planning Commission public hearing, and we had a good chance to meet with them and, to hear from them and hear some of their concerns. But really, I guess the question to you is, as a council, is if not this, then what? And I know you're planning for a general plan update in the coming months. It would be nice to have some direction, some guidance for the property owner, Patsy and Melvin Anderson, for them to know what to expect. And if this doesn't fit, if this isn't the right answer, what is the right answer? And it's fair to them to have some guidance and some acknowledgement on where things are and what they can expect. And I know they're anxious to do something with the property, and we're all patiently waiting for an answer. So anyways, welcome any questions you have at this time.
Okay, thank you. Let's go. We do have someone here to speak to this item. Wilf Summercorn.
Good evening, council members. Just wanted to take the opportunity, I think, on this item to come and let you know a little bit of the thinking of the Planning Commission, where it's been reported to you that the Planning Commission did unanimously vote against, or to recommend against, the rezone of the property. But we weren't, the Planning Commission, I don't think, was necessarily against the concept, the overall general concept of what was being proposed. It was just some of the details that needed to be worked out, or a little bit more. And then I think also with the issue that this kind of development very likely, I mean, we certainly thought that it couldn't move forward until the street systems were in place. And so those street systems are still a little ways off. And in particular, the connection to the Angel Street, I think, is going to be critical. But the right-of-way for Angel Street hasn't even been acquired yet at this point. And so the discussion was, happy to talk about this, but maybe it's premature right now. Maybe we need to see just how things are going to settle out with the transportation system out there in the next few months. And then also the city, of course, is embarked at this point on a general plan update. And we thought that might be a good time to discuss it a little bit more generally, what should happen with the remaining property in this area of Kaysville with the general plan update, and what might be appropriate given the new transportation, the streets that will be put in place. I think that's essentially the discussion. I think based on that, the Planning Commission just kind of felt like worthwhile to discuss. Kaysville does not have a lot of property left to develop. And so the impacts, and that's part of, there was discussion also about the impact or the capacity of the sewer system for this, as it was more so on another item that came up in a subsequent week. And based on the presentation tonight, I think we'd like to have some more discussion with the sewer district, just where things are at and how this might affect it as well. We did have a person at the meeting, a board member from the sewer district, who as part of the public comment did express the opinion that this might be an issue for sewer capacity for the area. We don't know the parameters of that, so we thought it might be good to look into that a little bit more, to combine that with what we're doing with the general plan. And we just didn't see a rush to make a decision on this at this point. We've got a bunch of things to look at. That's, I think, the feeling of the Planning Commission.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. questions from council?
Oh, that's the end of the comments?
Questions first
No
about
questions?
the current
Mhm.
item.
No question for me.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I don't have any questions.
Okay. No questions. I will
I'm
entertain.
happy to make a motion.
Make a motion, please.
I'll make a motion that we deny the rezone of approximately 10.6 acres of property at approximately 1700 South, 550 West from RA and A5 to R16, single family.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Moved by Councilmember Barber, seconded by Councilmember Tran. Comments. Yeah, I'm trying to decide if I want to interject at this point an idea of whether we deny outright or could we table. Is there any benefit to tabling at this point? No. All right. Okay.
And I'll make a comment on that, actually,
Yeah,
because I think
go
that's a really good question, because a lot of times we do see a tabling of an item when we're saying, hey, there's just a few things that we need to work out, and just because I think it's important everyone realize the process. If we deny a rezone, and Nick, you can correct me, but there's a year waiting period to bring that exact item back to council. But if they can amend it, they're free to go create a whole new plan and represent, go back to planning commission and start the process again. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. If they couldn't come back with this exact same plan in a year, but this property could be up for rezone with changes.
With something significantly different. And the reason I think in this case, I think that's really important is I think that process needs to be followed. I think going back to planning commission, and I think, well, I was going to say commissioner or chairperson. I always hear that on the videos. So chairperson, Summercorn, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Chairperson Summercorn did such a good job of explaining that, and that this is a complex position because we're looking at actual use of the land, but we're also looking at things in a very general sense. And so for that reason, I think it'd be great to go back to planning commission. Do we have more information? Do we know about road access? Do we have general plan? And I also want residents to be really involved in that process. So that's my thoughts on there.
Councilmember Lortz.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think a couple things to help clarify. I mean, obviously, the last 6 months have become very engaged in understanding what our general plan does or doesn't tell people. And certainly, I think we've got plenty of notes from residents around there who indicate that we bought into an area understanding that there were certain requirements of what kind of properties were going to be developed around us. When, for 25 years, it's west of I-15 is 2 per acre. That is the density. And there is the wiggle room that then says there may be some higher density near main streets or, arterial streets. And that's been very vague, but pushed a lot by developers to say, well, what's near and what's some? And I'm going to give my view on this. And I haven't talked to any of the council members about it. But to me, I think we need to clarify what is high density, what's medium density. And I hope that as we do the general plan, we get a lot more specific with that. For me personally, 2 or less per acre is low density. Medium would be 2 to 4. Anything above 4 per acre is high density in my mind. And I think for most residents in Kaysville, they would probably agree with something like that. What is some? To me, some is not we're going to take 10 or 20 acres and convert it into high density. That is not some. To me, putting an 8-unit or 16-unit multifamily in a place that's on an acre or that within 200 to 300 feet of those arterial streets would then, to me, be near and would be some. And I think that as we get these proposals that want to push things 600, 800, 1,000 feet away from the arterial street and say that's near, I'm going to say no, it's not. And when they ask for 8 or 6, 8, 10 acres of high density on the west side where it's been communicated for 25 years it's not going to be high density, I don't think that is the sum. And so while I'm not trying to directly talk to Ivory, I think, they've tried to bring forward a very good proposal about what they could do. But I don't think Kaysville has been, nor do the residents want it to become mini McMansions throughout the city now. The people have bought into Kaysville because there is space, because there is room, because it is a bedroom community. They didn't want to have, the Farmington Station in the middle of Kaysville. That's not what they moved to Kaysville to have, and we haven't had that yet, but we seem to be pushing the boundary of wanting to get there. And I just want to make my opinion known that, for me, Kaysville has a unique feel and flavor, and I don't think we should try to change it dramatically, because I think that's not what the residents want. People have moved here for what the feel is now. Is it going to change a little bit? Yes. Should we have some diversity? Yes. But the problem is most of these proposals that are coming for high density, not one of them is affordable. They're talking about $600, $800 million homes on a postage stamp lot. And to me, that just doesn't feel or fit Kaysville. And I understand that for property owners and developers, that's how they can make a lot more money. That's how they can, try to push a hot product. But I don't know that that's what Kaysville needs to be, is the hot product. We have limited resource. I think we should be more about protecting our city and our feel to do it right. And I think people need to understand there will be a mix that will come. I'm not against high density, but I think it needs to be some, not more. That's my feeling.
Thank you. All right. Councilmember Tran.
That was great. Okay, so since Councilmember Lord's kind of explained where he's coming from, I will just, as far as this project goes, I think that we got some great information from the sewer district tonight. Hopefully they can provide that plan for us and some data to help us understand where higher density could be and what our options are as a city. Because it's been really hard from this perspective to be able to look at a project and think, oh yeah, that looks like a great project, and then not know for sure if it's actually reasonable, and what we're doing to the rest of our city by bringing in a project like that. As far as density goes, is my personal opinion is that we need to offer variety. That doesn't mean that it needs to be everywhere. I mean, in certain locations, I think it's very appropriate. My version of density, higher density, would be higher than Councilmember Lortz's opinion of high density. But I do think that what we really need to do, and we need everyone to help us come up with this plan, because we're asking for input. We've spent the last year and a half pretty much talking about the general plan update. We know what we don't want. We know what people don't want. But we would really like to know what you do want. And I know nobody wants higher density next door to them, but there are some areas where it's really appropriate and it works really well, so that we can offer more diverse housing options, maintaining the balance and the traditions and the values and the space that we appreciate. But I also think it's our responsibility to be able to provide a plan, an update to the plan that reflects the community's desires, but it's a solid plan that we're going to actually follow consistently, so that when a developer does bring a project to us, they know, okay, this is where the community expects to see higher density. And that doesn't mean everybody's going to be, totally okay with it, but then they can go and work with the neighborhood and the residents and make sure that we buffer the areas as we migrate into a little bit higher density. But I think it's just really important for us to finish this process. What we're waiting for to finish this process, what we need is input from the community. So, because before there were some open houses that Planning Commission sort of sponsored and community development, and people were very much in favor of higher density within the community. They want variety. They want affordable variety, though. Like Councilmember Lawrence mentioned, affordable, in my mind, isn't $350,000, $400,000 houses. Affordable is something that our kids could afford, and it's not that. So I guess I'm just plugging for community developments. Participate, let us know what you really want to see within the community and where, because we are relying on that input to make good decisions. And without the input, we're left to our own assumptions of what people want to see. So I really encourage people to participate there. And we love seeing projects that are creative and versatile and diverse, and it's great. It's just that it's really important for us to be able to know exactly where we can put them. So that's my That's my thing there. So that's why I voted to deny this, because, you know, there are so many unknowns. Like Wolf mentioned, he said that, you know, the roads, we don't even have right-of-ways in place yet. It's a great project, potentially, somewhere. It's just, we don't know where it'll fit right yet, because we need more information. So, anyway.
Councilmember Blackham.
I just want to read what the actual plan says. It says, west of I-15 allow for similar housing densities in existing neighborhoods while considering medium-density housing along major streets and higher-density housing near transit stops and arterial streets, 200 North, I-15, and West Davis Corridor. So as I look at this, first of all, it's not even on a city street. There's not even a street built to this property yet. And I look at the neighborhoods that are around it, and I've been around to watch most of the development in Kaysville City the last 25 years, which has been mostly on the west side. And I've watched people build their 2 units per acre housing, or maybe if they cluster a little bit for a swimming pool or something, but they're still big lots. And people have made a huge investment, and they love the feel of Kaysville. They really like their neighborhoods. They like the sizes of their yards. And when you talk about density and going higher density, to me, if you go 3 units per acre, that's 50%. If you go 4 units per acre, that's 100%. To me, that's quite a bit more dense when you look at it in percentages. So something like proposed, like Ivory's proposing here, does not follow the similar housing in the neighborhood they're next to, and so. And there are no major streets there that I can see. Someday the West Davis Corridor will be in, I hope, but they've been talking about building that since the last 20 years, and still, when's it going to get done, Shane? I don't know. So, and, you know, like he says, we don't even have the right-of-way for the Angel Street extension. We don't know if that's ever going to happen or not for sure. So to grant a zoning based on what might happen in the future would, I think that would be a mistake for this council to do something like that. So I just don't think this follows the general plan. I understand why people try to get land in Kaysville and put as many houses on it, because there's been so many people that have invested so much and love living here so much that, of course, anybody would like to live here, you know, but you don't want to take away the feel that they've all bought into on just the remaining pieces around them. I don't think that's the right way to do it, and and that's why I would vote against it.
Councilmember Adams?
Yeah. I come from a car dealership background. I was in car sales for 17 years. And in the car business, if someone came to me and offered me $25,000 for a $50,000 car, I'd look at them and say, yeah, take a hike, number one. Number two, come back to me when you have a real offer, and we'll see if we can even start talking. And so for me, and it isn't pointed necessarily at Mr. Freebairn, but it seems fairly ignorant to come back, or to come to the council once denied by the Planning Commission unanimously. I don't like the idea of coming in at the lowest possible density that we don't even have in existence here in Kaysville. I mean, we just made it, and saying, well, if you don't want this, what do you want? In fact, it to me seems disingenuous. We recently had a situation where across on east of 89, where development we've all been privy to, went and visited with every single neighbor, and they worked very hard with even the current landowners to create something that still felt like it was similar in product, at least on the outside, and then inside had a couple of higher density homes. I think that's a model that every developer should follow, and if you want to get my approval, that would be the number one thing, is that you have the approval from as many of the neighbors as possible. I echo what everyone else has said. This road's not even a sure thing, the Angel Road, and so yeah, I just think this is too soon, and I don't like the technique for any developers out there listening to come in super high and hope and then want to negotiate down lower, because if you offer $25,000 for a $50,000 car, we're not going to end at 30 grand. We're going to still be up in the $48,000 range. That's just how it works. And so that would be my comments, blunt as they may be.
Councilmember Barber, anything more? Okay, let's go to a vote. All right.
The motion is to deny, right?
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
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 All right, the motion is unanimous. Thank you. All right. Amendment to Kaysville City Annexation Policy Plan. Shane?
Thanks, Mayor. As I mentioned earlier, this is an amendment to this annexation policy plan. It was mostly a reflection of a clarification that we will service those properties that are annexed into the city with city utilities. We've added it in a work item. We went to the Planning Commission. We had a public hearing earlier. Didn't have a lot of those that wanted to speak for or against this policy plan. And it did pass the Planning Commission, I think, unanimously as well. So we're here for questions, but hopefully this is pretty straightforward.
Okay. We don't have anybody signed up to speak in public comment, so we'll go to questions from council. No questions from council. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the amendment to the Kaysville City Annexation Policy Plan.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Lortz, seconded by Councilmember Adams. Any comments? Seeing none, let's go to a vote. Councilmember Blackham.
Aye.
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 Motion is unanimous. And I think that's a record. It was unanimous the whole way through. All right. Okay, so we are now going to call to the public. We didn't have anybody sign up for call to the public. And council member reports. Anybody want to start council member reports? Councilmember Blackham, anything?
I just, a couple of things I would like to talk about. One is the Public Works is very busy. We've been working on some things. Josh is trying to get the stormwater booklet done. And we've also been working on the Sunset, try to get that. Been working on trying to get with Councilman Lortz, trying to get the curb and gutter on the west side of North Angel. They are also working on some other, what else was that? We've been working on the Angel Street Road. We've been working on sidewalk and stuff, and we've had some meetings with UDOT, and they're not very flexible.
You don't say.
Councilmember Adams is, even his car salesman couldn't get it.
Hey, it's not over. Not over till the end.
But what I'd kind of like to talk about a little bit tonight is our police department. I mean, through all this that we've seen in the last few weeks, we had 2 new officers sworn in tonight who are all excited about working for Kaysville Police, and I just think that is just absolutely awesome and incredible. And I really applaud the chief, and not just the chief, it's all of his guys. I mean, they're just great to work with, great to talk to, and I don't hear anybody complaining about our police officers. I mean, you're going to get tickets if you're speeding, okay? But there's not a whole lot you can complain about. You made the best out of it. But I just want your guys to know that we really appreciate what they do for Kaysville and how professional they are, and even coming from our attorney, saying how good they are and thorough they are and professional they are. it's just a testament to your department, and I really appreciate them and what they do. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Councilmember Lords.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely would support those comments, Councilman Blackham. I mean, we've got a great force, some great people, and I think it also goes to the citizens in Kaysville, that they respect the police force, that we don't have big instances or challenges. So I think it's a two-way street, each of us supporting each other, so we're stronger together, if you got the newsletter message. With the power department, a lot of things getting going. They're back on the AMI meter installs, so they're down to about the last 10% of meters to be installed. They hope to get those done here in the next little while. They're down to the last, I think, 20 LED lights to be installed on street lights. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but I've definitely noticed. It's a big difference in a lot of streets, and I think they're great. They're doing a great job and continuing to stay extremely busy. And I mean, I can't say enough good that they really are taking care of Kaysville, because we've had very few problems. So it's a good thing.
Oh, yeah, I do. Okay, so I already gave my little speech about community development and participating in the update. Planning Commission does such a fantastic job. They really do. They work so hard, and they're so vested and so interested in making a difference. I would love for the sewer district to go and talk to them. So I'll talk to Wilf about that and get them to invite Jill and her team. Yeah.
Be awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Right. Anything?
Oh, just a shout out to Fawn and all the people who post all the cool things about our history and what makes Kaysville so great.
I love those too.
I love them. I think, I don't know if she's listening right now. Might be past her bedtime, but I'll text her. Anyway, yeah, I mean, that's, we haven't done much as far as like the museum and stuff goes, but nothing really to report.
Councilmember Barber.
Okay, I have fun stuff to report because we have 4th of July coming up. And it's going to be the most unique 4th of July any of us will ever remember, and we're going to make it memorable. So Kaysville Rec just put out a whole list of activities leading up to the week of 4th of July with the phrase, our independence celebrations on Independence Day, which is awesome. And so there's some really great stuff there. There's one really big change to what was previously put is that the patriotic live stream that we have actually has a change of date. It's going to be on July 5th at 7 o'clock. And so the great thing is we have an awesome speaker. Tim Ballard is coming to speak, which is going to be fantastic. And we also are going to honor our Kaysville and Fruit Heights unsung heroes. And you all get to enjoy it from the comfort of your own home. You just pull up YouTube and sign on and watch this awesome Kaysville live stream. But we had to change the date due to some other things. So Sunday, July 5th, be sure to do that. And then July 4th, there's going to be an awesome first responder freedom drive. So you'll see some of our first responders driving around and just spreading cheer in the community that morning. So there's also some other things in the works that haven't 100% been finalized. So stay looking on all of our social media and KaysvilleRec.com for all the info. But I'm really excited. That's going to be a fantastic celebration. And, all the virtual 5K, which I signed all of you guys up for.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did.
How do you run a virtual 5K?
I figure I'm going to sit in my chair at home and just move my legs.
Funny. No, it actually is really cool because the Rotary Club always does the 5K.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And so leading up to it, you can go walk, run. I think they said bike. I'm not sure, but I am implementing a bike acceptance policy. So go do your 5K. You can donate to the Rotary Club and get a shirt. They're actually really cute. So
I did have an
so let it
time
be
on an
written.
e-bike.
So let it be written.
Let it be written.
It is on, all of you. Mike, you cannot ride your motorcycle. That does not count.
I say you can.
Okay, fine. But anyway, we're going to have a lot of fun. Invite your friends and family and just make the best of it because we'll remember this 2024 for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. All right. Wonderful. The one thing I do want to say is that Kaysville has a new resident, and that is a little baby Gibson that
Yay.
arrived. So
Oh, yes.
we're excited to have Kaysville grow by 2 feet, as they say. So, Shane?
I was going to mention Lyle, so thanks for doing that. And maybe just a thank you to all the staff here, especially those here, but those that have helped put these meetings together. They're so strange, and public comment, and Anne Marie's done a lot to get these things squared away. So I know it's strange and will evolve and change, but thanks for you guys and all of you that come. And Nick, you did a great job tonight, and Dean, thank you. So appreciate it.
And should we give an update on the council chambers, the new council chambers?
Sure.
We're expecting the remodel to be completed by the end of July. So by beginning of August, Councilmember Blackham does not agree, but we're going to use the power of positive thinking on this, that by the beginning of August, we can be in the council chambers back where we belong, and there's going to be some great features. It's going to accommodate our community a lot better and easier to see and hear what happens, and there will be a lot more meeting rooms available, and so we're pretty excited. We got to go walk through it earlier today. So there's that.
New mics.
New mics.
The mic has elastics on it.
Everyone on YouTube, you are also getting an upgrade because it's going to be
wonderful.
So much better.
Yep.
But we
And
still want
it's
you to
going to
come
be
in person.
ADA compliant, and which is going to be wonderful as well, and hopefully be able to serve the residents even better. All right. I think I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Wait, what?
We have another
Yes.
meeting?
All right.
Yeah, we do.
Okay,
Oh, we
and
did.
then,
Adopting a budget for
all right.
the RDA.
Oh, we have another one?
Okay, I would
Get
like
outta here.
to,
How long is it, Shane, do
it depends on
use
how
the
much you
restroom?
talk.
Okay.
Really fast, really
Okay.
fast. Okay, we are
Depends on your
meeting
questions.
as
I
a
could
development agency board, and Dean.
Thank you, Mayor. You had a public hearing last week, 2 weeks ago, on the redevelopment agency budget, and it is ready for adoption for fiscal year '21.
Okay, thank you. I will entertain a motion on a resolution adopting a budget for the Kaysville City redevelopment.
I'll make a motion adopting a budget for Kaysville City Redevelopment Agency fiscal year 2021.
Second.
All right, any questions? Any comments?
Actually, yeah, you know.
Oh, my God.
All in favor, let's start with Adams.
Aye.
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 Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn from this
Move
meeting.
to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I would like to open our Municipal Building Authority Board meeting. A resolution adopting a budget for the Kaysville City Municipal Building Authority for fiscal year 2021. Any questions?
We did already review all this. For
Yes,
anyone
yes,
watching,
we
this
did.
is not just,
Yeah.
we already last week.
Yes.
Yes.
So-
I would entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve or adopt the budget for the Kaysville City Municipal Building Authority for fiscal 2021.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. It's been moved by Board Member Lords, seconded by Board Member Adams. Board Member Barber?
No.
Let's
we
vote.
voting? Oh,
Let's vote.
aye.
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 I just wanted to mention that the reason we are doing it like we are doing it is because we had public hearing last week, and we don't like voting on things the same night we have the
That's
public
right.
hearing.
Right,
So,
thank you.
aye.
That was fantastic.
And,
Aye.
okay. Motion passes unanimously. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, there we go.
Just, I should say that every once in a while.